Have your attention. It's now past 6 o'clock. I will call the meeting of the Planning Commission to order. If you will please be quiet and be seated, please. Thank you. If we'll have the roll call to open the meeting, please.
Pat Dorr,
Here.
Dion Jones,
Here.
Janice Lewis,
Here.
Kimberly Remack, Diane Singer, Donnie Singh,
Here.
Steve Stratton.
Here.
Okay, you've received in your packet the minutes of the December 10th, 2024 meeting. Are there any corrections or additions that need to be made to the minutes? And I know we've had a few corrections made since they were mailed to us.
Just the corrections that were submitted.
Okay. If not, then do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Now, we have a motion by Ms. Lewis to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, we have a second by Mr. Stratton. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the minutes have been approved. First of all, let me just welcome everybody here tonight. Wow, what a way to start January. We're so glad that you're here, and we ask one thing of you, please. Remain silent during these presentations and try to hold your applause or anything that you might say. Now, you will have time at the end of each presentation to come forward and speak and voice your concerns or anything that you have to say. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes because we have a room full, and if anybody wants to speak 10 minutes, we're going to be here a long time tonight. So please, and only one trip to the podium per person, if you will do that. And once again, we're glad you're here because this is the process we need to go through to make the city of Olive Branch a better place to live. And just thank you for being here. All right, we have one item on the consent agenda it's an item that's considered routine and non-controversial in nature that does not warrant a full staff or board presentation. So I'm going to read the consent agenda item. If there's anyone here that wishes to have a full presentation, we will do so. If not, we will vote on it as read. All right, it's an application to extend the time to record a previously approved final plat, Hamilton Circle Subdivision, Phase 1, submitted by Nick Croonan, Civil Link LLC, on behalf of Richard Litwood, Cobblestone Pools and Construction property owner. The subject 2.25 plus or minus acres property is zoned PUD, Planned Unit Development, and is located at the southwest corner of Akery Lane and Hamilton Circle. Is there anyone here that wishes to have a full presentation on this item? If not, then we need a motion to approve the consent agenda from the commissioners.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Jones to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Singh. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the consent agenda is approved. All right, under old business, we have an application for a preliminary plat for Kirk Farm, Phase 1, submitted by Robert Reeves on behalf of Allen Olive Branch LLC property owner. The request is to subdivide 29.04 plus or minus acres into 74 lots and 11 common open spaces. The subject property is zoned R3, Planned Residential District, and is located on the north side of Goodman Road, just west of Creekside Drive. And we'll have the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. Before you is a request to consider the preliminary plat for Phase 1 of Kirk Farms subdivision. This really is a ministerial act. There is no zoning action involved. The piece of property that we are looking at, broadly speaking, is located north of Goodman Road or Highway 302, so it's to the north, east of Pork Lane. This is Eastern View subdivision. This is Fox Creek subdivision, Bourbon to the south. This piece of property is located right here between Eastern View subdivision and Fox Creek subdivision. In March last year, I think that was precisely March 19, the Board of Aldermen, following your request, your recommendation, approved the project text and preliminary development plan for the entire Kirk Farms subdivision. That included a rezoning of the property from AR to R3. So that zoning action already took place in March last year. All that you've been asked to look at today is the preliminary plat, subdivision plat, for phase 1 of the subdivision, which will consist of 74 single-family residential lots. So this will be detached lots. The layout is the same as it was presented and approved in the preliminary development plan, which is shown before you. So nothing has changed as far as the layout is concerned. So I did mention the total number of lots in this particular phase 1 of the subdivision. There will be 74 lots. 8 of those lots shown here in yellow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, would be manor lots, minimum 10,000 square feet, as was approved in the project text and preliminary development plan. So this image in front of you, this is directly from the project text as approved. The rest of the lots, those will be neighborhood lot type, minimum 7,200 square foot. This phase 1 of the development will include the connection of the subdivision to Fox Bend Lane in Fox Creek, as was required and approved in the project text and associated preliminary development plan. This is the connection which will be made in this phase 1 of the subdivision. Other elements regarding streets will include all the streets in this subdivision in this phase, and throughout all the other phases will be constructed with curb, gutter, and sidewalks. The main street, one may say, running north, or the spine road running north to south of the subdivision, that will be constructed with medians as was required in the project text and shown here in this preliminary development plan. You will also have the roundabout constructed at this intersection to serve as a traffic calming measure. Improvements along Highway 302 will be as required by MDOT. So for the applicant or the developer to make this road connection to Highway 302, that requires a permit from the Mississippi Department of Transportation. An application has been submitted to MDOT with the traffic numbers. It's currently under review. It's my understanding that a decision has not yet been made by MDOT. The applicant can clarify that. Regarding amenities, a section of the trail, so this subdivision is supposed to have a total of over 4,000 feet of trail network. A section of that trail will be in this phase 1, and as such, it will have to be constructed. Stormwater management infrastructure, as is required of all project texts in the city, all subdivisions in the city, when you're doing any development in the R3 zoning district or the planned residential development district, your project text preliminary development plan has to show those stormwater infrastructure areas. So those are the detention ponds that will be constructed for stormwater management in this particular phase 1 of the project. An amenity feature, the other amenity feature includes the swimming pool, which will be in this phase 1. However, as we all know, if the applicant were to go in or the developer were to go in on day 1 and construct a swimming pool out there when you don't yet have residents, using the property, then that would just be waste. It basically decay. So staff is basically recommending that the same standard that the Board of Aldermen applied in the Villages at South Branch subdivision with respect to the swimming pool that is being constructed there should apply here. which I think was before the 63rd house will pass final inspection, that pool needs to be in place. Regarding utilities, there is water available. You have gas lines. One of the conditions that the board had in the approval of the preliminary development plan and the project text was that the applicant or the developer will work with the city engineer and the city generally and contribute partially to the extension of sewer, public sewer into this particular development. This is in an area that was newly kind of annexed into the city. That agreement has been completed, it has been signed. And from what I got from the city engineer, the developer has already put in his own portion of the money into the extension of the sewer. All of that is based on how much capacity, sewer capacity we have in the facility at Brabant. That is also covered in the staff's recommendation per the city engineer's memo. Another element we had in the project text was a requirement that before the preliminary plat for phase 1 can be approved, the applicant must submit flood data studies to FEMA. So the applicant, right now, the flood data studied in this particular subdivision ends at about this particular area to the north, coming from from Memphis, or going down into Memphis, because this water flows this way. So the flood data study designation of the areas per FEMA maps ends about here. The applicant had to study that creek going down. The water already exists, so the floodplain is there already, so to speak. It's just studying it and designating where the floodplain limits end, the floodway ends, and so on. All those studies have been done and have been submitted to FEMA. They are currently under review. FEMA has actually sent feedback, some comments back for the applicant to address. The recommendation before you is that before the final plat is approved by the city, the applicant should have received the decision from FEMA and actually show on the final plat those floodplain limits to ensure we don't have homes flooded in any way once they are built. Per that study, these are the homes, within the Fox Creek and surrounding areas that they already fall within the existing floodplain limit in that particular Fox Creek. This is the preliminary plat as drawn, submitted before you for consideration. This is the connection to Fox Bend Drive that we did talk about. Staff's recommendation. Staff is recommending approval of this preliminary plat for phase 1 of Kirk Farm, subject to a number of conditions. Condition number 3, specifying that a portion of the walking trail line within the area of this phase 1 of the subdivision must be constructed before approval of the final plat of this phase. Especially because usually what the applicants, they go in and do is mass grade. So while they are doing the construction of the roads and so on, they may as well just take care of the trail system. However, the swimming pool in the area of this phase 1 must be constructed before the 60th house in the subdivision may pass final inspection. So the applicant may bring forward the final plat for this phase 1, get it approved, and go ahead and start building the houses and selling them. Get people living in the subdivision before the 60th house passes final inspection. That swimming pool should be in place. That's the same thing they're doing right now in the villages at South Branch. Condition number 4 to 7, I wish to call attention to condition number 6 and number 7. Number 6, underlining that an approved MDOT permit shall be submitted to the city engineer for the new street connection to Highway 302 before the commencement of construction. Any and all improvements required along Highway 302 by MDOT shall be completed by the developer. All street medians shall be designed and constructed with appropriate street trees and shall be approved by the Director of Planning and Development or designee. We are blessed to have a certified landscape architect now on staff, so he should be able to review those trees in those medians. Condition number 8, the developer and or the property owner shall secure FEMA's approval of the conditional letter of map revision, which I talked about, for the subdivision before approval of the final plat of this phase 1. And usually the final plat is done. After this, following the approval of the preliminary plat, they will have to submit the construction plans to the city engineer, who will review and approve them. They go and they build the subdivision infrastructure, the roads, the utilities, all of that, and then they bring the final plat to you for approval. So at that time of the final plat of approval, they need to have received that approval from FEMA and show all the designated floodplain limits, the floodway boundary, the base flood elevations on the lots. All of that needs to be shown on the final plat. The traffic circle, which must be designed to accommodate trucks, school buses, garbage trucks, has to be ADA accessible and incorporate measures to slow down traffic, shall have subdivision artistic water feature as was required in the project text for Kirk Farms. So that refers to this circle right here. It's supposed the project text required that it should have a water feature. That has to be shown in the construction plans and has to be in place. Subdivision construction plans shall include the design details of these features. This condition number 10 is important. It addresses the sewer issue and is being recommended by the city engineer. A maximum limit of 350 homes will be allowed to tie to the city's proposed regional sewer pump station and 6-inch force main. Once this maximum limit is met, a new larger force main line will be required of Kirk Farms to be submitted to the city engineer for review and approval. An annual review of the overall sewer system improvements shall also be required. A cap, this is important, a cap of 150 lots is hereby imposed or placed on Kirk Farms, but may be adjusted annually by the city engineer up to the 604 lots that was approved in the subdivision total. And that will be based on the availability of sufficient capacity, sewer capacity, and an approved sewer plan and an appropriate sewer plan that can handle the proposed lots. So for now, all these lots are going to drain to the facility, the sewer facility in Brabant. You have other development centers such as Senahi Farms that is also draining to that facility. And the city engineer has worked with the different developers and done the calculations and determined that they can only go up to 150 lots. That will be sufficient for this phase 1 because phase 1 is only 74 lots. So by the time they get to phase 2 to phase 3, maybe around phase 3, that's when they start running into issues with that maximum. Condition number 12, that had to do with the shared funding for the sewer infrastructure that I mentioned in the staff's presentation earlier. That has been signed already. As such, staff is proposing that that condition be eliminated. Condition number 13, at final plat application and in furtherance of compliance with the stipulation of Article 12, Section B of the project text for Kirk Farms, regarding the roof geometry, the applicant shall submit elevations for all sites of roofs for houses that shall be constructed in the subdivision for the Planning Commission's consideration and the board's approval. That is at final plat. The approved variety of roof elevations shall be binding in the subdivision. That is an issue we have run into regarding villages at South Branch, and we think it's important to resolve that. It was kind of insinuated in the project text already for Kirk Farm. That was required. We just want to make sure that a final plat, all of that is in place and is approved by the board, so we don't run into any problems when it comes to approval of the building plans. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff?
I had just one quick question. The tie-in to 302, Highway 302. Since Highway 302 is a state highway and they have to get MDOT approval, that includes if they have to install a traffic light or anything like that, that's an MDOT thing, right? That falls under their jurisdiction?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
And that condition specifying that all improvements, they will have to make all improvements as required by the MDOT. So if MDOT says you have to put in a signal, they have to put a signal.
Any other questions? No further questions. And is there someone here to represent the application?
Good evening. My name is Robert Reeves, 6333 Burn Way, Arlington, Tennessee. I am here to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Do you agree with all the conditions of the staff?
We do.
Okay. Yes, no questions, and thank you so much. Normally, we do not have a public hearing for plat approvals, but does anyone here wish to make any comments? If you have, please raise your hands and we'll see. If not, then public discussion is closed. I'll now open it with the commissioners for any questions or discussions or any motions they wish to make at this time.
I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Kirk Farm subdivision Phase 1 and recommend the same to the Board of Aldermen, subject to the 12 recommended conditions.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Jones to approve the preliminary plat for Kirk Farm subdivision Phase 1. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Stratton. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the motion carries and the application is approved. Item number 2 under old business is an application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Trey Byers and Lauren Ward, Daniel Coker, Orton and Bell, PA, on behalf of property owners Robert Bailey, J&M Holdings, LLC. The request is to correct an error in zoning from AR, Agricultural Residential, to R3, Planned Residential District, and to approve the project text and development plan for Bristol Oaks. And this was tabled at the meeting of December 10th, to this date, at the meeting of December 10th, 2024. You will now have the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning Commissioners, before you is a request to consider the rezoning of a 38.89 acre piece of property somewhat at the southeast corner of the intersection of Pleasant Hill Road. So this is Pleasant Hill going up to the north, and State Line Road. So the city limits ends right here. This is the Dome in Memphis, anybody who knows this area. This is the Villages of South Branch subdivision under construction. This is Quail Hollow subdivision. This is Stonecrest subdivision, and Chickasaw Heights is to the west. So the piece of property, it's right here somewhat at that southeast corner. And adjoining it, or directly west of it, there is a power station on a separate 10-acre piece. The property is currently zoned AR, Agricultural Residential. So I did mention the request is to rezone this piece of property from the current AR district to R3 Planned Residential District, and to reinstate the project text and preliminary development plan of Bristol Oaks with some changes. I will explain what all this reinstating means and why we're dealing with this error claim and reinstatement. The basis of the rezoning, as claimed by the applicant, is that when this 38.89 acres piece of property was rezoned in 2012 from R3 Planned Residential District to AR, the city made a mistake in that rezoning. In 2005, specifically on November 1st, 2005, the Board of Aldermen approved the preliminary development plan and project text for Bristol Oaks. Bristol Oaks was a subdivision on a 48.69 acre piece of property, shown here, which included the property that you're looking at tonight, right up to this area, and the 10-acre piece that currently has the power station. So in 2005, you had a 48.69 acre piece of property, as shown here, which the Board of Aldermen approved its rezoning from ARO Agricultural Residential to R3 Plant Residential District. And also in that approval, the board likewise approved the associated project text and preliminary development plan shown here. That preliminary development plan consisted of 71 lots, had a gross density of 1.46 dwelling units per acre. It was accessible from Pleasant Hill Road, as shown here. You had that median, you had it accessible from Pleasant Hill Road and from State Line Road. It was also a private gated community. You're going to have gates in this area, in that area, fence all around. So this was a private gated community. This is what was approved in 2005 with this rezoning. It is worth stressing that when it comes to the rezoning of property to the R3 district, there must be an associated project text and preliminary development plan. That the content of that text and the preliminary development plan is seriously factored by the city in determining whether the property will even be rezoned or not. Multiple times, for example, we just did Kirk Farms. When Kirk Farms went to the board of Alderman, the board sent them back to the drawing board about twice before it was finally approved. The rezoning was finally approved from AR to R3. So you always have to marry the project text to the rezoning, to that zoning designation. The two always go together. You cannot separate them. What the applicant is asking today involves a number of changes. This is the new project text, preliminary development plan design before you that the applicant is requesting that you consider. It is no longer a 48.69 acre piece of property. Rather, it is 38.89 acres. Why? Because 10 acres was sold in 2009, 2010 by J&M Properties, the current applicant of this rezoning, to New Life in Christ Fellowship Church. In 2019, the church sold that 10-acre to North Central, and North Central used it to build the power station you have on that property today. As such, what you had approved in 2005 is no longer buildable. It's no longer buildable. Your subject property, I should insist, has changed. Every time you're dealing with anything dealing with zoning, you have to always begin with what is the subject property. If the subject property changes, everything changes. So your subject property has changed. It is no longer a 48.69 acre, it is now 38.89. It is no longer a piece of property that touches Pleasant Hill Road. It doesn't have access from Pleasant Hill anymore. The number of lots have reduced from 71 to 51. The gross density has reduced from 1.46 to 1.32. As I did mention, you only have access at this time from State Line Road. You cannot have access from Pleasant Hill as it were in 2005. Lastly, this new proposal will not be a gated community. It is open. This will be public streets with no gate control. Under Mississippi state law, to rezone property, the applicant has to show one of three, meet one of three criteria. The other two are kind of together. The applicant has to show that the original zoning classification for the property was a mistake, or that the character of the neighborhood has changed, such that the proposed zoning will conform with that change and that a public need exists. So condition number one stands alone, but condition number two always goes with condition number three. So you either prove a mistake, stand alone, or you prove change in character and the public need. Under the law, that proof must be clear and convincing to the Planning Commission and to the board. The burden of proof is on the applicant, who has to submit clear and convincing evidence to the board. To be clear and convincing means that it has to be evidence that leaves the planning commissioners with a firm conviction that it is highly probable that the factual contentions or whatever claim is being made before you is true. In layman's term, it has to pass a smear test, put it that way. The applicant contends under the original zone that the original zoning classification for the property was a mistake. This is the argument the applicant is making. The applicant has opted not to argue in favor of change in the character of the area, although, as you find in the staff report, the availability of sewer on that area right now, that was not there back in 2005 or in the 1980s when that property was Zone AR. The construction of Stonecrest villages at South Branch, Chickasaw Heights, those are all changes that have happened in that area in line with smaller lots, less than 1 acre. The comprehensive plan of the city also indicates that once this public infrastructure is available, then in line with the public need for housing, you can have smaller lots. But the applicant has opted to argue in favor of a mistake in the zoning classification of the property. The applicant, this mistake under the law cannot be a mistake in the judgment of the Board of Aldermen. You can never say the board made an error, the board was not supposed, it was not right to rezone this property to R3 because there was no change in character of area, for example. You cannot argue that. That's not what a mistake is all about. The mistake can just only be clerical or administrative. For example, if the Board of Aldermen rezones property to R3, and then the GIS staff, in putting it in the system, mistakenly puts it as C2, then that's a clerical error. Those are the things that fall under mistake, a clerical mistake. Administrative errors are essentially procedures. The applicant makes two main arguments with respect to this mistake. One, that in 2012, the city zoning ordinance required that a party of interest, only a party of interest such as the property owner or a designee by that property owner, only the planning commission, only the mayor or the board of aldermen could initiate a rezoning. None of these persons initiated the rezoning of this 38.89 acre piece of property. The person who represented the rezoning by the name Brenda Solomito of Solomito Land Planning was not authorized by J&M Holdings that owned the property. This is the central contention of the applicant. Secondly, that in this 2012 rezoning, J&M Holdings did not receive notice that its property was being rezoned, and as such did not have the opportunity to be heard on the application before the Board of Aldermen. This is the submission of the applicant. In this regard, an administrative error was committed. In other words, due process was not followed. Yeah. What staff finds with regard to the claim of unauthorized submission of this rezoning, and these are considerations for the Planning Commission to make as you consider the arguments and act on this particular application. The application that was submitted in 2005, this is the map that was submitted with that application. The site clearly showed the entire 46 or 48 acres, which included the property owned by both J&M Holdings and the 10 acres owned by the church. So all of that was requested by Solomito to be rezoned. On the day of the submission of this application, Mrs. Brenda Solomito also submitted an agent designation form signed by the church for the rezoning. This was signed on October 10, 2012. On October 23, 2012, the associate planner of the city at the time, Ms. Lorette Time, she wrote to Brenda Solomito and pointed out that the city does not have an agent representation form for J&M Holdings. She did mention this lot because you had what today you can call a combo application. it was both a rezoning, there was a rezoning application and a subdivision application that were submitted together to be considered. Lot 1 and 2 on that preliminary plat application were owned by the church. Lot 3 was owned by J&M Holdings. And all these 3 lots were part of the subdivision application. So staff rightly pointed out, identified that there's an administrative problem here. We need to have agent representation for what was Lot 3, that portion of Lot 3 of the rezoning. That was a query or an email sent on October 23rd, 2012. Found this in the records. The preliminary plat, as I did mention, consisted of these 3 lots, Lot 1, Lot 2, and Lot 3. Lot 1 and Lot 2 owned by the church. Lot 3, which is the subject of this rezoning tonight, owned by J&M Holdings. On that preliminary plat, there was a side note that clearly stated that this property, the property that was the subject of this plat, Lot 1, Lot 2, Lot 3, is currently zoned R3 and is being requested to be rezoned AR. That was stated on the preliminary plat. On November 6, 2012, J&M Holdings issued an agent representation form to Brenda Solomito to represent them on this application. So this is the agent representation form that we found in the file. There is a suggestion, there appears to be a suggestion that because we found this, staff found this particular form inside the subdivision folder as opposed to inside the rezoning folder, therefore the agent representation applied only to the subdivision application. If I put myself in the place of the staff that was there at the time, this is the amount of paperwork that our staff was dealing with. Anybody could have shoved that anywhere, that paper into one of these files. Secondly, on this agent representation form, there is no indication, no restriction that this applies only to an act of subdivision. And as I did mention, the subdivision plat itself to which this authorization was being granted had a note specifying in it that this land was a subject of rezoning. I've highlighted it here, included in your package. Existing zoning R3, proposed zoning AR. The applicant also contends that no notice was given to J&M Holdings, and as such, J&M Holdings did not have the opportunity to be heard during the hearings of the rezoning in 2012. Other considerations to be taken. First, an applicant in a rezoning case is not a practice in the city that an applicant in a rezoning case receives the same letters that we send to surrounding property owners. Because if you are the applicant, you already know what you are requesting. The notice letters that are sent to surrounding property owners, because those surrounding property owners do not know what has been applied for. So the applicant does not receive notice. Those letters are courtesy, they are not required by law. It was a courtesy notice, they are not required. The statutory notice required by law was provided by the city. That is the one that has to be in the newspaper, which the Board of Aldermen advertises. And that was done November 29. I actually got a notice today from the city clerk. The board held a public hearing, and that notice clearly indicated that the city was going to be hearing this particular application. Anybody who has interest in it anywhere in the city, you can show up and speak at a public hearing. So the Board of Aldermen rezoned this property at a public hearing. In 2015, so we're done with 2012. In 2015, the city of Olive Branch, following the identification of a few properties that might have been in error at the time, the city hired an external consultant to actually come in and study basically all the parcels in the city to make sure that everybody's zoning was okay. We didn't have errors. That whole process took over a year and was done. When that was completed, the Board of Aldermen rezoned about 8 to 10 pieces of properties that were determined to be in error and affirmed the zoning designation of all other properties that the board determined were not in error. In that ordinance, the Board of Aldermen affirmed the zoning of the J&M property to be AR agricultural residential. In other words, the board in 2015, the Board of Aldermen in 2015, worked on all properties in the city, determined the ones that were in error, changed them, and affirmed that what we have not changed is not in error, basically. And it did not change the JM and H property. The board set this map before you. These words are very important. To be used, this map from September 9, 2015, is to be used as the baseline map for future reference in the city. So when we are doing rezoning today, we go back to 2015. We stop there. Anything is from what happened in 2015 coming up to today. That's a baseline map. We don't go below, address anything that happened before then. As I did indicate, in rezoning property to the R3 district, the board also has to take into consideration the preliminary development plan. The plan submitted before you is comparable in design with the surrounding densities. For example, Chickasaw Heights has a density of 2.25. The current development proposed before it is 1.32. The house sizes in the subdivision will be minimum 2,000 square feet of heated area. All sides of the houses will have minimum 75% brick. This will be a very low traffic development. It will generate just an average of 1 trip every 3 minutes. That's very low. It will be a pedestrian-friendly subdivision. Public utilities such as water and sewer are available. And with respect to the public health, safety, and general welfare criteria, this is criteria for evaluating preliminary project text and preliminary development plans in the city zoning ordinance. As I did indicate, these will not be a gated community anymore, so you don't have access control. And it's important to bring this up because this location is close to Memphis, and one of the things that Olive Branch always considers when you have developments that are close to Memphis are issues of safety. There is no stormwater management facilities that are shown in or on the preliminary development plan. As you saw on the one for Kirk Farm, you had those areas clearly designated. When you're rezoning property to R3, you have to provide those on the preliminary development plan. There is no preservation of 10% of green space of the property is not being proposed to be preserved as required in the zoning ordinance. The applicant basically is requesting that the city should reinstate the preliminary development plan and the project text that was there in 2005, only reinstate certain elements, don't reinstate others. That is basically what you've been asked, the applicant is asking, without these issues being addressed. Today, with the requirement for street, curb, gutter, and sidewalks, you absolutely need to provide stormwater management. That's the zoning ordinance, that's the stormwater regulations of the city. Staff recommends, and I'm sorry this is a bit of a long recommendation, I wish it was something shorter. The recommendation before you is kind of very legalistic because of the nature of the application or the claim that being made. If the Planning Commission finds as fact that JMH or J&M Holdings designated Solomito as its agent, if you find as fact that the property owner or this applicant did designate Solomito as his agent for the purposes of the rezoning from R3 to AR, and or that the adoption of the citywide map as the official zoning map of the city of Olive Branch in September 2015 examined all properties across the city, determined those that were mistaken and rezoned them accordingly, affirmed therein the zoning of the subject property to be AR, and set forth that map as baseline zoning map for future reference in the city. And as such, that J&M Holdings has failed to prove by clear and convincing evidence, it has to be clear and convincing to you, the existence of a current administrative mistake in connection with the 2012 rezoning. If you find these three things as fact, then it is requested that the rezoning from AR back to R3 should be denied. unless the applicant can prove a change in the character of the area and the existence of a public need by clear and convincing evidence. Should the applicant decide to pursue this change in character of area and public need, it is further recommended that the Planning Commission should table this item and request that the applicant submit such clear and convincing argument in writing and revise the project text and development plan to provide a 10% open space, designate locations for stormwater retention or detention, and make other changes as the Planning Commission may deem necessary, and submit such text and plan as a new project text and preliminary development plan for the Planning Commission's consideration. That's staff's recommendation. Alternatively, if the Planning Commission finds as fact that J&M Holdings proved by clear and convincing evidence that it did not designate Brenda Solomito as its agent for purposes of the rezoning, that J&M Holdings proved by clear and convincing evidence that not having designated Brenda as its agent, it further lacked notice of the 2012 rezoning of the subject property from R3 to AR, and that the adoption of the citywide map, the official zoning map of the city in September 2015, which was mandated and set by the Board of Aldermen as constituting the baseline map for future reference, did not cure a probable mistake in zoning as claimed by the applicant. Then the Planning Commission may reasonably find and recommend to the Board of Aldermen that the property should be rezoned from AR back to R3 on the basis of administrative mistake, with the concurrent review and approval of the updated project text and development plan as submitted by the applicant. Thank you. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Got a question.
Okay.
In lieu of what the applicant is requesting right now, since the development plan is not what it was when it was proposed and the original zoning was changed, what would the process be if the applicant just wanted to come and request that the zoning be changed and a new project plan be put together? What would that process?
The applicant will submit, if the applicant does, so if you keep aside the argument on mistake, then the applicant will submit a request, a rezoning application to the city, and will argue that there has been a change in the character of the area and that a public need exists. And then the applicant will write a new project text with this preliminary development plan in it, and that will be what you will consider and recommend to the Board of Aldermen.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions?
Basically, if we find that there was an error, the subdivision that they would be allowed to build would be something from 2005, that based on 2005 regulations, basically. I mean, all the regulations that we have today, which we didn't have back then, like have to have street lamps, have to have curb and gutter, sidewalk, and the detention and everything like that, would not apply to that.
Yes. Basically, what the applicant is asking you to do is to reinstate what they had in 2005. They have made a number of changes, some changes, other areas they have maintained and not made any changes in them. Well, I will speak later if it comes to that.
Any other questions? If no further questions, do we have someone to come forward and represent the application?
Good evening, y'all. My name is Lauren Ward. You saw my name up on the application. I'm an attorney at Daniel Coker, Horton & Bell in Oxford. I've been retained by J&M Holdings to represent their interests today at this hearing. Staff did a great job providing you a lot of the background. I don't want to run over the same ground and put anybody to sleep today by any means. I do want to clear up a few points. During the 2012 rezoning process, staff referenced that there was a concurrent application for the subdivision by the church as well. I want to make it very clear that the church was the applicant on both of those applications. J&M was never an applicant in the 2012 process. You also heard about the 2012 designation form. I want to make it clear that that form was found solely in the subdivision application file, not in the rezoning application file. The church had a designation form in both. J&M did not. But I want to take this back to the Olive Branch zoning ordinance at that time required that a rezoning request be initiated by a person with an interest in the property. That didn't happen in this case. The church did not have an interest in the nearly 40 acres that was owned by J&M back in 2012. So in that instance, J&M wasn't the applicant. It didn't ask the city to rezone its property in 2012. The second way to do it is to have a designation of agency. As I've presented to you tonight, there wasn't a designation by J&M to either the church or its representative, Brenda Solomito, in 2012 to rezone J&M's property. That second factor wasn't satisfied. To that end, that application should never have even been considered by the Planning Commission or the Board of Aldermen because it did not meet those procedural requirements that somebody applied or that somebody gave agency on that factor. So to that end, yes, that is our argument. There was an administrative mistake. That application shouldn't have made it out that far, especially not applying to J&M's nearly 40 acres contained in there. Second, J&M never had a desire to have its property rezoned. It purchased the property in, I believe, 2009, and at the time, it was zoned R3, planned development. It had proceeded under that understanding. It sold 10 acres to the church, but it still believed its property was R3. Those 10 acres were subdivided out, and J&M, this all started because it wanted to continue to develop recently with an R3 designation. Its intent and desire has always been R3. That hasn't changed. I have with me tonight, and I can just hand it off to you at the end, Mike Bailey. His name is Robert Bailey on the slides, but he's the client representative. He's signed an affidavit to that effect. That designation form was not provided regarding rezoning. There was no desire on behalf of J&M to have their property rezoned. And you also heard notice. Since there was no intent, that's a procedural deficiency. J&M couldn't have waived that deficiency if it didn't have notice of the rezoning, and it didn't. I understand that Olive Branch publishes in the newspaper, but as I also understand, it's a courtesy to provide mailings to adjacent landowners. It's made clear by staff tonight that they don't have to give those mailings to applicants, but it's undisputed. J&M was not an applicant in 2012. So yeah, we get it. They don't get a mailing as an applicant, but they deserved one as an adjacent landowner, and they weren't even on the list of addresses, and they were directly adjacent to the east side of the church's 10 acres. So without that notice, they couldn't have waived the procedural requirements. What I would also urge you all to consider is that in 2012, the church didn't ask the city to rezone their property based on mistake. So that means the city would have had to consider a change in the area, like we heard tonight. Those are the factors. No proof was provided in 2012 that there was a substantial change. No clear and convincing evidence was provided that a rezoning of the entire property was necessary or needed by the public. So at that point, we don't have intent. We now don't have evidence. We don't have notice. J&M's in a tough spot. 12, 13 years ago, its property was rezoned and it had no idea that it happened. It had no authority. It had no intent to have that happen. So that's the position in front of you tonight. Our application is just one to correct an error that was made in 2012. Revert this back to the correct designation, the AR to R3. We want it to stay R3, as it should have in 2012. And that is my request to you all tonight. In order to find differently, you would have to find by clear and convincing evidence that Brenda Solomito had authority to act on behalf of J&M, and they didn't. And I will tell you, during the process, the church represented itself as the owner of the complete property. That was never true. The church has only had those 10 acres at that point in time. So there's mistakes in several areas, but this all boils down to the fact that that application shouldn't have gotten out of the application phase. They didn't have the intent or the authority on behalf of my client. So to that end, I would ask that this commission determine that the rezoning was based on an administrative mistake and that it should revert back to the R3 designation. And I would ask that that's the recommendation you all make to the Board of Aldermen on this matter. As you heard, there's also a development plan that was part of our application. I have Mr. Bob Barber here with me tonight, and he can answer any questions you might have on that. But if you all have any questions regarding the the rezoning in 2012 or anything that happened up until that point, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Any questions?
I do have a question. You said that JMH Holdings did not request, I can't remember her name, New Life Church to represent them. However, they did represent them in the subdivision application. So there was some subdivision, there was some representation. Now, obviously, we don't have a time machine. I'm going to ask you, did JMH review the subdivision plan?
That's a good question.
Well,
They did provide the authority to Brenda Solomito and the church to proceed with that subdivision plan. But at no point, regardless of what they reviewed, did that authority extend to a rezoning.
right, but what we're talking clear and convincing versus, and again, we don't have a time machine, but on the subdivision plan, it was, it was identified on there that there was going to be a zoning change on the subdivision plan. And JMH Holdings did give authorization for representation on the subdivision plan. So we can't be we can't be crystal clear that there was no representation or authorization for representation in this overall process. If we want to thread the needle, that makes it a little bit more difficult because, again, we don't have a time machine. So we don't know whether or not JMH reviewed the subdivision plan, which on there is text that says the subdivision, the zoning will be changing. So there is some gray area there. All right, thank you.
Any other questions I can answer?
Any other questions?
Oh, I got one more.
Go for it.
Why are we doing both of these at the same time? And the reason I ask is if we didn't approve the project text, it wouldn't matter what we thought about whether or not there was clear and convincing evidence that the zoning change was a mistake. And so why do both of them at the same time?
I agree with you. That was a suggestion in discussions with the planning department, that we should proceed with both of them at the same time, some sort of efficiency. I would urge you all to look at them maybe as separate matters. J&M needs to know what its zoning classification is under the city's consideration. Obviously, we argue that it's R3. But if in the end of the day, whether that's through the Board of Aldermen or to the Circuit Court, that comes out that it's AR, obviously there's considerations that J&M Holdings needs to make. So to make that landowner consistently change and update a plan that may not even come to fruition, I agree with you. I think they could be separate matters, and I think tonight you could recommend that this needs to be rezoned back to an R3, or that error needs to be corrected back to R3, and then we can figure out the development plan once that decision's made to avoid unnecessary costs and time on everybody's part.
Biggest issue I'm having is understanding the need to acknowledge that there was a mistake made rather than, hey, can we just have this as R3? Because I believe that if you did present an application for R3 with a new set of project text, with a new project text and everything like that, that conformed to today's guidelines of what we have in the city, because I mean, obviously, we wouldn't want to build a subdivision in 2025 that looks like it was built in 2005. It wouldn't fit. It wouldn't be right for us to do that. But I'm just failing to see the benefit for J&M Holdings to just have the need to say that the mistake was made rather than just be like, hey, we want to build this today in accordance with today's standards.
And I think you made a good point. I do want to clarify for all of you and for the record that J&M Holdings anticipates adhering to today's standards. It's not building a 2005 subdivision in 2025. We understand changes have been made. Those are footnoted in some of the project text. They're recognized, stormwater retention, things like that. So I don't want the worry to be that we are building a subdivision of yesteryear instead of something on today's cutting edge with today's requirements from the city. So that's not going to be disputed by J&M Holdings. That's something that they can agree to, and that's why I think we need to figure out what the zoning classification is to make that decision on where we go with that project text and how we proceed without forcing through a plan that may not get approved.
So what you're saying is J&M Holding agrees to provide project text and a new subdivision according to today's guidelines and regulations? Because that's
Yes.
not what's provided in this right now.
I understand
There's no
that.
detention, there's no nothing. So-
That's the intention. It may have gotten lost in translation, but there's by no means are they trying to skirt out on updated standards. They are trying to adhere to those. They hope to do so if this is approved for R3. Absolutely.
Just speak to the project text and plan. The intention was simply to recreate as closely as possible the original file. We had, a scanned copy of a file, was black and white. And we have footnoted extensively in the project text. The stormwater detention, for instance, is footnoted that we'll pick the appropriate stormwater detention up on the preliminary plat phase. I was informed today that there is no preliminary plat phase at this level of R3 because it's a singular stage. It's not a multi-stage subdivision. So we would stipulate that, yes, detention would be provided to the appropriate standard. We already knew the streets have to be curbed and guttered, so we did include that. Let me clarify the private street, the comment on private streets. The original plan had covenants that had no provision for private streets. There's no homeowners association. It was never intended to be private streets. The gates were associated with the subdivision signs. So to summarize, we were just trying to recreate the plan as it was once restored, understanding that through the subdivision process, all of those standards would, yes, definitely have to be met. Whether it be open space or fee in lieu of open space, there was the option in the original plan to provide a fee in lieu of open space, which we left in that reconstructed plan and footnoted it. This was in the original plan. We'll abide by today's standards, whatever they may be. So that's the intention. Hopefully that clarifies those points.
Any other questions?
And would y'all like to see a copy of these affidavits? I've got 5, so if you want to pass them around, I can bring them on up to you. It's Mr. Bailey's affidavit regarding his intentions back in 2012 and today.
Yeah, but, oh, sorry.
So, and there's, you set a high bar, okay? You set a high bar when you include terms like it'll be either settled here or at the circuit court, okay? Very, very high bar. And we have the same high bar, okay? Because the clear and compelling evidence is up to you to provide, okay? And you said several times during this, you just want to know what the zoning is. I think right now the zoning is AR. On any document that we pick up, you claim that zoning is an error, and you'd like to get that error fixed.
That's correct.
And so if it was zoned, it is currently zoned AR. And the process to get that zone from AR to R3, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else up on council, it is that things have changed and there's a public need. And that application is very straightforward. And that application is straightforward, and then the project text could be very clear and compelling, okay? And the same amount, probably less time than we've taken right now, we would have moved through the process of reviewing that zoning change and consideration for the project text changes. Because the project text that was presented at the original zoning change, it's far different. It's far different. Even if I just say the 2 connecting roads, because it's far different than what's being presented now for us to consider in this error. Fix this error and let us do this, U-shaped subdivision. But it's far different than what was approved from AR to R3. So it is your goal is to get the rezoning done based on an error. And maybe the developer may be more open to an alternative. So it's unfortunate the developer's not here, their legal representative is here. That's just got that one goal in mind. And so we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Any other questions?
To add to what Mr. Jones is saying is that would you guys be willing to look at the options of either withdrawing the application and representing it as a new zoning from AR to R3, or tabling this up to a certain time where you can provide us with an updated project text that would conform to 2025 standards as opposed to what's being presented today?
To be fair, I don't want to close the door on anything, any options available for the client by all means. I just want to remind you all that J&M didn't ask for this. They're just trying to get a correction that they weren't even informed about. And I will tell you, back in 2005, this city rezoned this property from AR to R3. There were specific findings made that the character of the area changed to satisfy an R3 designation. In 2012, those same findings weren't made. In fact, the property was just rezoned to AR without findings of change, mistake. So really, what's before the city is that already in 2005, you decided it should be R3. And we're just asking that this designation be corrected back to what you had already previously decided. But yes, I mean, if there's options available, we'd love to discuss them, but that's our position at this point, is that the applicants already had to do more than they needed to based on an error they didn't create.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comments. Okay, now we will open this for a public hearing, and one thing we're doing differently starting this year is I do have sign-in cards that you have completed, and I will call out your name, and you can come forward and make any comments up to 3 minutes in favor or against the application. And we ask that you not, in essence time, not be repetitive. Also, some of you may not have signed the cards, and after that is over, I will ask for, if you want to raise your hand, come forward. But once again, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I know we have this application, and I think we have 2 other applications that people are here for now. So the first person I have on my list is Paul or Charlotte Ashburn. And if you will please come forward, 4915 State Line Road.
I'm Paul.
I'm Charlotte
We
Osborne.
live at 4915 State Line Road, run across the street from where this property is looked at. I asked the council to deny the request for the R3. I think that we should keep it agricultural until they can present to us to update qualifications that the city wants to do for subdivision to building, like curbs, water detentions, all that should be brought up to code to 25. What they asked for in 2012, that was fine back then. We didn't have all the restrictions that they have now for the city to approve. They gave them approval then, but it went back to AR because that's what my property is, AR. That's the way I like to keep it around there until they can present us with a plat of everything that they want to do to the city's approval of what needs to be done to the land. There is a lot of problems with the land, and I would like to know on the acres that's there, the 10 point, they said that there, where the church was going to be on the corner there, that is not part of this R3 that they want. North Central owns a portion of that, which they built that electrical power thing there. Do they own the whole 10 acres? Is that going to be North Central's property, and it's not going to be included with this HLM Holdings, JM, I think is what it is? Is that not going to be a part of this? The 10 acres will stay as it is?
Okay, we'll try to have that answered at the end. So if you'll note the question, we'll
That
address it.
corner, I would not want that to be a part of JLM plan. And then they just do this other portion, and then later on come into the board and ask y'all to approve that to be a commercial property and put some kind of commercial gas station, which they have tried to do that once before, and we fought that, and we won. And that's great, because I'm right across the street, and I don't need all that riffraff that's gonna come along with commercial property. So I would like to know that that's gonna stay a church property, or who owns it, is it North Central or JLMH Holdings?
And plus, if you do it residential, you'll have a lot more traffic. The traffic, we can't even get out of our driveway right now. We have a stop sign with 50 people trying to get through the stop sign in the afternoons. The traffic is horrible in that area. Our schools are overcrowded. We don't need any more residential down in that area because our schools are way overcrowded. So I don't have kids in school, but I know how it is.
If they want to do that, they need to four-lane that road or something, because the traffic is, and
It's terrible.
accidents, we have crashes and wrecks there.
Every day.
At that corner. And it's just, I don't know that our streets can handle 51 more lots there. And the other thing was the lots that they had proposed, and I don't approve what they had. So I would like for y'all to review a whole new plat, a whole new idea, a whole new planning for 2025 for this city to move on, to make this a better place for us to live in my neighborhood.
Thank you for your comments. Elaine Chenault, 8523 Pleasant Hill.
I'm Elaine Chenault, 8523 Pleasant Hill Road. And I appreciate Mr. Jones and Mr. Singh on the opportunity for them to go back and take another look at this and bring it up to today's standards. And I know that's going to be repetitious to what the other people are saying, but it's like when we looked at some of the square footage and stuff, it was like we didn't get a number on what the ground footage would be on the bottom floor of these houses. So we didn't know if that would be more like apartments. I know Mr. Mike Bailey has done several subdivisions around us, and they're done well. And he's done Windstone, and I think he did Stone Park. If this is something on that order, I don't know, but that does require less lots and not smaller houses, but you get all your square footage just going straight up. The main thing that we're after in this area is that these houses are not rentals. And of course, I know you have no determination over that. It's like the developer can sell it to a rental in a minute, but that's what we'd like to stay away from. Thank you very much.
Reverend Dwight Salisbury, 5453 State Line Road.
That was one of our major questions to the church. I represent New Fellowship Christian Church, which is adjacent on the east side of this property. And we don't mind development, we don't mind housing and what have you, but we do want to try to keep the community as such, where people have an opportunity to come in and buy and take care of their properties versus renting properties. So that's our concern about that, for as would it be rentals or would they be property owners that will come in and take care of the property?
Jim Harris, 5105 Coleman Road.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Jim Harrison, 5105 Coleman Road, and 24 years ago we moved down here and bought in that area just because it was agricultural residential, where the lot sizes were a half acre and up, and the housing was fairly good, decent size. And the only neighbors we had when we moved down here was a fire station and a whole lot of farmland, soybean fields. Now we have subdivisions everywhere, and when they put those other ones up, they wanted crackerjack houses, and we fought that, and we got some decent sized houses up and down Pleasant Hill Road. Now, if you look at that plot, that subdivision dumps out on the State Line Road. Now, I'd I don't know what the average is, but at least 2 cars per house. It's going to be a nightmare getting out of that subdivision in the mornings and in the evenings. There's no stoplights. Pleasant Hill and State Line are 4-way stops. Davidson is 3-way stop, 4-way stop, I guess. And what are you going to do with that? I mean, how are you going to control the traffic? It's already a nightmare on State Line Road in the evening and in the morning. And so is Goodman Road. And if you don't think that Olive Branch growth is out of control, you can walk faster to Kroger from my house than you can drive there because of all the traffic. I mean, it's just unreal. There was a statement on that about the public interest, that they have to deny it. And what was that statement on there that I saw? That it has to be a firm, you prove that it's in the public interest, that this will help the public. Well, let me introduce you to the public. Okay? They're filling this place. And we do not want it changed to residential. As the lady before me said, I believe that that means that companies can build rental houses. Is that true?
We can't answer that.
Okay. Now, let me tell you about a rental house on the corner of Pleasant Hill and Coleman Road quite a number of years ago. The individual that lived there had to move because his company moved him, and that turned into a rental house. Well, after they moved in, things started to change. Security cameras went up everywhere on that house in all directions. We kind of wondered what was going on because marble stuff was going in and stuff was going out and all kinds of changes. I told my wife, I said, man, that's either a FedEx pilot or a drug dealer.
Sir, your 3 minutes is up.
Well, about 4 minutes later.
Could you please conclude your comments?
Well, I will conclude, but see, you guys work for us, okay? That place turned into a drug dealer. And they're gone now, and the people that bought it are decent folks. So we do not want what's going on here. It's not in the public interest.
Thank you. All right, Teresa Isom, 4706 Coleman Road.
I'm Theresa Isom, and I represent the Chickasaw Heights subdivision. I'm the HOA president. And in our subdivision, we're concerned about the rental property. And I heard that they were saying that there would not be an HOA. And for us, it's real important that there is an HOA so that there would be some type of supervision, because they built the homes down from Coleman to Malone on Duval. 35 homes were approved. We were never notified that those homes would be rental homes. And this would be another concern for us. We're having a lot of crime that has come into our neighborhood. We come out, the cars are sitting on the street where people have tried to steal them. And it's happening a lot. Also, like was mentioned earlier about the street lights, my neighbor's car was totaled out at State Line in Pleasant Hill because the traffic, and it's a 4-way stop sign, and it's a lot of traffic there. So I'm asking that you all keep it as an agricultural residential. 55 new homes to be built in the area and to have them as smaller homes again, it's going to bring in a different value to my home that I have. And I would like to maintain the property value that we have within our subdivisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, those are the only cards that I have. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? If you'll raise your hand. Okay. sir, if you'll come forward, and we'll take y'all, if you, please state your name and address for the record when you come forward.
So do I direct you as judge or honor, or what are you? Mr. Dorr.
Commissioner Dorr would be fine. or
I'm Jay
Commissioner.
Topkin, and I live in the Quail Hollow subdivision. I've been there 31, 32 years, and have seen tremendous growth surrounding our subdivision. We start off with a 1/2 to 3 acre lots. Peaceful, you're out in the country. I'm more speaking about myself than the community on this subject because it affects me, okay? If you can pull up lot 14 on Quail Hollow for me, y'all have it? I want to make sure that the developer is aware that he's going to run into problems. And I hope he considers the outlying areas of other subdivisions, not just worried about himself. On lot 14 on the face, from my house looking out, northwest corner, is a natural drainage ditch that's 10 feet deep. The water runoff from that corner, 15 to 18 acres of water that comes down to that point. Okay, it's been there, but then it goes into the woods. It goes into this 38 acres. And you know what water does? It's going to find a way out. Well, eventually, I think it goes under state line, goes all the way to 78. When we get a lot of rain, even the manhole covers that are going down this line are overflowing. So what I'm concerned about is the water that's going through my backyard into that subdivision. Now you've got houses, the houses are built up, now what? And it's gotten so bad the last 3 or 4 years, the houses that are running along Pleasant Hill, their backyards are starting to erode because of this northwest corner. And I want to add, there's a pumping station there that's been there 20 years. It's been neglected. I've had run-ins with Public Works for 20 years, off and on. The water that comes down through there is so powerful, it will take any culvert downstream. I've seen it. It will erode any gravel road that they put over that culvert. It's done it 3 times. The water has rapids in it, okay? 15 to 18 acres, it's coming from both ends. And my concern is, are they gonna dump into that pumping station with the sewer lines for the new subdivision? My suggestion is, 1, get that thing out of my backyard, the pumping station. It's been there 20 years. It's an eyesore, total eyesore. The pumping station is across the ditch. That's still a 1/4 acre of my land on the other side of the ditch that I can't cut anymore because I can't get to it. Now, the city's going to get over there. They're going to make sure they can get their truck back there. They have to check the pumping station every day. I saw them Christmas Day back there because it's outdated, it's not sufficient. And if this new subdivision ties into that, which would be real convenient for them, it's right there. We're talking about a mess. And I wish I could just talk to the developer. We don't have to go through all this. I just need to talk to him. And one other thing real quick. I think I speak for everybody on the back end of that subdivision. We want the minimum 100-foot tree line left, north and south. Because 20 years ago, I got promised by the city when they come through there with sewer lines, We're gonna leave you a 40-foot buffer, and then an easement for the city, and then there's 38 acres. Well, I come home from work one day and it's all gone. They hired an outside engineer and we stood in the backyard and he told me, we're gonna put you a buffer up here, the city will own behind it, and then there's a 50 acres at that time.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So I want it in I gotta have something in writing
That's good.
about the wood line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate you. All right, I think we have one other gentleman who wishes to come forward. Whichever one wants to come first. Once again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, please.
Good evening to the board. My name is William Tennell, and I'm a member of New Fellowship Christian Church at 5453 State Line Road. And I come before you in opposing to the project that's been presented on tonight. And I don't know if it was done by an honest mistake or what have you, or when the plans was put up. Maybe the plans were 2005. But on that plan in particular, it said that every 3 minutes there was one person that was noticed in that airway. And so if that was 2005, we got to go back to 2025 with the amount of traffic that flows in that particular area. Because I want to say it's probably, if you took a 3 minute count, you probably got about 25 or 30 cars going that direction at the same time. So I ask you to look at that. And also, with the gentleman who just left, talking about the pumping station. New Fellowship Christian Church has a pumping station that's outdated on its property also. And everything he said is true. We got water that runs alongside that church, that big logs travel down through that path with the amount of water that's coming through. So that's coming from the other subdivision that was built north behind the church, and we've been promised a new pumping station. The part hadn't come in. It's coming from Germany. That's been over 5 years ago. So we still hadn't got that fixed. And then these developers, they're gonna sell us the moon, telling us they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. But once they come in and lay their plan and do what they're supposed to do, you can't get in touch with them. Everything is gonna be half done. And these residents, the 2,000 square foot homes, I don't know if you guys can measure 2,000 square foot homes, but that would include the downstairs and the upstairs. So basically, we're looking at probably 0 lots properties we're talking about building in. If you were to go up north towards State Line Road at Tullahoma, I think we got some of those homes already there that they've built. And I don't want us having to call on the committee to help us with this water, with the amount of property that is coming in, the people's property that is losing value, the whole 9 yards. So I ask that you please consider what the people are saying tonight and not approve this plan and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we had one more gentleman to come forward, please.
Well, my name's James Gore. I live in Quail Hollow subdivision, and Jay's right. And I'm about 4 houses up from Jay. My whole backyard floods and takes days to clear out the water. But I was here in 2005, and the condition then, they was only cut off that 1 acre on the corner for commercial property. The rest of that land, they didn't even discuss that night. Because me and Jim and several other people was here to fight that being commercial, but they go ahead and rule it commercial. So the other part, as far as my concern, my recollection is still AR or RA or what do you call that resident? And that's why we should keep that land. This subdivision go back up to Quail Hollow. If you look at the homes from Malone Road to Davis Road, most of them are set on 1 acre and above, except that 1 0 lot home stretch. So I want to keep it as the way it is now, not compact houses. And that just gonna create crime, and over time, they're gonna downgrade and create more crime. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. I think we covered everyone that wishes to speak. I would now entertain the applicant if they wish to come forward and answer some of the questions that were brought forward.
I can't speak to everything. I can't make promises by any means. I did want to clarify that our application is only for those 39 plus or minus acres that J&M owns. It's not to do with the 10 acres from the electric company that's on that corner. Those were purchased by the church. They were rezoned in 2012, and they were subsequently sold to that electric department. So that is not subject of our application. I don't have any authority to talk about those 10 acres tonight. Ours is solely the 39 plus or minus. I hear all the concerns. I understand that. But this property was rezoned to R3 back in 2005. That was a finding made by this commission and confirmed by the Board of Aldermen. And really nothing has changed on that property since 2005 that would require this to stay AR. Like I told y'all, in 2012, there was no findings that it should revert back to AR. It was just done. So with that, thank you for your time and thank you for the concerns expressed tonight.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll now close the public hearing, and this means there will be no more input from the applicant or the public in general, whether by way of new information or response to any issues. So are there any further clarifications or input from staff? Does staff have anything they wish to add? Does staff have anything they wish to add to it?
Thank you very much, sir. Just to state a few things for the record. With regard to the city's rezoning in 2012 from R3 to AR, there was actually the finding of fact by the Board of Aldermen that the character of the area has changed and there was a public need for it in the records. So that was an act of judgment on the board. It wasn't just something that was done. And the ordinance actually has that detailed in. Part of the application that was submitted by Solomito had that argument made, clearly written out, which the board endorsed for the records. With regard to the issue that was brought up on traffic, on 1 car per 3 minutes, that is not a 2005 number. That is what this application as currently submitted will generate. So it's not a 2005 number. With regard to rental, which is something that many people have raised, these would not be, if these were approved, these would not be apartments. That's the first thing. The project text specifies clearly the type of uses that are permitted on this property, and the preliminary plan as drawn, these will only be single-family detached homes. So they will not be apartments, they will be single-family detached homes. The minimum lot size will be ½ acre. The minimum lot size as currently drawn would be ½ acre. In terms of the house size, the 2,000 square feet that was mentioned, that is the heated area. So you're not including garages and all attic space that is not heated, all of that is not included. So if you include that, and if it please the Planning Commission to go with staff's recommendation, and I were to come back here, the recommendation in front of you, and I were to come back and give you a comparison with other houses and lots that are in the area, you will see clearly that what is being proposed is quite comparable, and in some cases even better to some of the houses that have been built and the lot sizes. Lot sizes in Chickasaw Heights, for example, and the house sizes in the project text, some of them are smaller than what is being proposed here. So I think from what has been presented. It's up to the Planning Commission to decide what you are convinced with. The zoning of the property, the question was really on what is the zoning of the property. The zoning of the property is AR. That is factual. If we received a zoning verification letter today, it would be AR. Since 2015, when the city adopted the baseline map, nothing has changed. The zoning of the property is AR and remains. Permit me to insist on this. When the R3 zoning district is not a holding district, in the city, you have the C4, which is a holding district. You can rezone property to C4 without a project text and wait for the day that somebody shows up with a development. Then that person does a project text with a plan, goes through this process, get it approved. So the C4 can be holding. The R3 is not a holding district. Whenever you are rezoning property to R3, there must be an associated project text with this preliminary development plan that is binding, and the two go together. That is zoning ordinance back in 2005, in 2012, today, that has not changed. So it's not a holding district. You cannot separate the two. For you to rezone property to R3, you have to be satisfied with the project text that is before you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the staff. Before I turn this over to the commissioners, and we have a good crowd here tonight. I just want to remind you that our decision tonight, when we vote, it's a recommendation to the mayor and board of aldermen. So regardless of whether we vote for or vote against, it will be presented to the mayor and board of aldermen, and they make the final decision. So I just want everyone to know that before we go through this process tonight. I will now open it to any comments, discussions, or motions from the commissioners. If you have anything you wish to say, or maybe you're ready to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to table the item. I request that the applicant submit a new project text and preliminary development plan for the planning commission's consideration, and that they consider to pursue a change in character of area and public need argument.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Jones to table this application and follow the project text and all the requirements of the city if they come back to rezone it from AR to R3 under the current guidelines. Is that good enough? Do we have a second to this?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second by Mr. Singh. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So it was unanimously carried to table this from the Planning Commission. So that, I'm sorry?
Not till the next meeting.
Not to the next meeting.
That would depend on what the applicants decide to do. If they decide to come back at the next meeting with a new project text and new argument, we will send notices to the neighborhood accordingly. If they decide to take 2 months or 3 months, whenever that is going to be, we're going to send notices accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. Okay, our next application is under old business. And any of you that wish to leave, you can do so, or you can stay and be with us the rest of the way. I'll just take a moment and let you. Can we be excused? Yes, be excused, yes. 3, we have an application for a final plat for Donald Oxner subdivision submitted by property owner Donald Oxner. The request is to create a single residential lot of .4024 plus or minus acres. The subject property is on R2 Single Family Residential District and is located on the east side of Mockingbird Lane and west of Redbud Lane, known as 7356 Mockingbird Lane. And this was tabled to this date at the meeting of December 10th, 2024. Staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're talking this afternoon about a property in Maywood, so I'll take us there. If we'll follow the cursor here up Pigeon Roost into Maywood, you could take Woodland over to Redbud, circle around, and we're going to end up over here, Mockingbird Lane, 7356. Subject property again is .40 acres. Zoning is R2. Transportation in this area, Mr. Chairman and Commission, the driveway would exit onto Mockingbird Lane. It will be a driveway requirement for it to be paved. All utilities are in the area. No, there's no variance or deviations, no waivers asked. This is a copy of the plat as in your exhibits. Our next steps and recommendations, as you can see, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the final plat and recommend the same to the Board of Aldermen, subject to the 3 following criteria. That concludes staff presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Any questions of staff? If there are no questions of staff, is there someone here to represent the application?
Bob Farley, 235 West Tullahoma Avenue, Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Anyone have any questions? No questions, then thank you, sir, for being here tonight. Since this is a final plat, there's not a requirement to have a public discussion on this item. So I will now present this to the commissioners for any comments or motions they wish to make at this time.
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Stratton to approve this application, subject to the staff conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Lewis. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the motion carries and the application is approved. Thank you. Now we're under new business. Item number 1 is an application for a final plat for Grants Creek subdivision submitted by David Robertson, the Bank of Fayette County property owner. The request is to create a 1-lot subdivision with right-of-way for future street connection if needed from 17.47 plus or minus acres. The subject property is on AR, Agricultural Residential District, and is located at the dead end of Hunters Creek Drive. And we'll now have the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you may recall, on October 11th, 2022, the Planning Commission voted to table an application for a 1-lot single-family residential subdivision by the previous owner until such time more information regarding a future home site, proposed right-of-way, and utilities was provided. As you'll see before you, this is an updated and modified application that addresses concerns with the previous application. Namely, this revised application proposes to dedicate right-of-way to connect Youngblood and Hunters Creek in the future, but there's no associated requirement proposed to be placed on the application or applicant to construct a road, utility improvements within the new right-of-way, or time to create an improved right-of-way. So this, it's staff's determination that it would be disproportionate to require a developer to build a road crossing with only a single lot proposed. The right-of-way to potentially be built by a future developer or the city at a later date is included. It is recommended that the .57 plus or minus acres, we'll call it the remainder, parcel, it's located between the proposed right-of-way, which is this, we're gonna see it in a few more slides here coming up, but this is the proposed future right-of-way. The remainder parcel is this, and it is proposed, and it's one of our criteria, that the remainder parcel between the proposed right-of-way and Hunter's Run Section J subdivisions be described by meets and bounds and deeded to the owner of the adjacent Lot 11. So as I said, we would look at this proposed right-of-way. This is a future right-of-way. And I do appreciate some of the comments I've heard this afternoon. One, that we are here on behalf of the citizens. As we've all saw in California here recently with the fires, one of the chief concerns with those fires is one way in and one way out. Most people from those fires lost a lot of home goods and lost a lot of things that they were trying to get out with in their cars because they only had one way to get in their subdivision and one way out. Fire departments had to go up with bulldozers and push their cars out of the way that were loaded with home goods and personal effects because there was only one way in and one way out. We've noted here in this area on a previous application of the tornadoes of 2020 or 2019 on Dunn Lane, in which I lived. There was only an exit onto, or an entrance onto 305 and Craft Road. Both were blocked for us that lived in the middle of Dunn Lane. So 2 entrances into subdivisions is needed. It's also a responsibility of our citizens. So this is a proposed right-of-way. It does not mean anything will be built tomorrow. It's a future right-of-way that was proposed as a way to get Youngblood Drive and Hunters Creek Drive to actually connect. You'll notice within your packet I have an exhibit that shows Hunters Creek Drive, and there's a house here on this corner that actually are on another one, but anyway, the Hunters Creek Drive's 1.2 miles from State Line Road to where my cursor's at. I think it's on a different corner, but it's essentially the same type of neighborhood. It was 1.2 miles one way in from 305 back to the Winder's Gate home that burnt down. There was one way in, and maybe if the fire department would have had another way in, we could have had a better success with that burn. However, this right-of-way will be vacated. This right-of-way was put in to join Old Craft or actually New Craft. Railroads have here recently, within the past 30 years, tried to not have as many crossings as it becomes more of a hazard for the train. They wanted, so this road would never went through, so this would be vacated. The .57, we're calling it the remainder, plus the proposed right-of-way, gives us 16.6 acres out of the 17.47. The proposed lot fronts on Hunters Creek, which is an existing public road. Access to the lot will be from this road. Driveways are required to be paved per city regulations. There'll be no sidewalks required in the AR zoning district under any development scenario that would create more than a single lot. So under any different scenario than we're looking at now, the staff would recommend that this road be completed and the necessary arrangements made to connect Youngblood and Hunters Creek Drives. Again, this is looking west on Hunters Creek Drive. This is the property entrance. If you'll notice, the reason it was tabled the last time, there was some confusion about what trees were to come down by the previous owner, and this is what is left. Staff visited the site. It was a very nice home site, much as you see here, and the building envelope appears to be about in the middle of the property. The property is located within the agricultural residential zoning district, which requires a minimum lot size of 1 acre. This surpasses that. Again, we're talking about 16.6 acres and a minimum lot width of 110 feet measured at the 50-foot front setback line. So that line is approximately about where the pointer's running. Anything built would need to be behind this pointer. It appears a home would be situated within a building envelope on Lot 1, created by applying the 15-foot side setback, 50-foot rear yard setback, which there's plenty of room with the railroad, and the front yard 50-foot setback, in which we just talked about. In your packet is shown on Exhibit 5, utility lines such as sewer, gas, and water are available within the general vicinity. The property owner is responsible for the development and to extend all utility infrastructures, such as any service, to be conformed with the subdivision development standards of the City of Olive Branch. The City of Olive Branch's regulations will require a paved driveway. So our next steps here, upon recommendation by the Planning Commission, the plat will be forwarded to the board and Mayor of Alderman for consideration. If approved by the board, the plat would need to be recorded before any building permit could be issued for a new home on Lot 1. So our recommended motion is to approve the final plat. Recommend the same to the board and alderman for the Grants Creek subdivision, consisting of 16.06 acres, subject to these conditions 1 through 4. I will note again, final plat will need to be recorded prior to issuance of a building permit, and that the future driveway to the home will need to be paved. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions to staff?
I just have one question to staff. With the deeding the .57 acres to the owner of Lot 11, is the owner of Lot 11 okay with that?
Owner of Lot 11 is here. He did fill out a card, and I'll let him speak to that. I did notice he was speaking to the bank, the Fayette County Bank, so I would let him speak to that if you would be okay.
Thank you.
And just once again, this is a right-of-way, and there's no road proposed to be built at this time. Is that correct?
That's right, sir. It's just a right-of-way to hold that for any future development.
Future development.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. Has the applicant expressed any interest in multiple home sites, or is it just one house that they're wanting platted?
Yeah, they came in and spoke to us about one home is what they're wanting to build.
Also, one other thing, this lot, is it on the deed, is it part of the Youngblood subdivision, or does it fall under the Hunter's Run subdivision?
It's not part of a subdivision.
It's not part of
its own.
anything, so
No,
like,
sir.
the other lots that back up to, like the homes that are in Youngblood, those are deeded under a different subdivision?
That's right. That would be the Youngblood. If you'll notice here, that is Hunter Creek Section A. Here's our subject property. Along with these properties, they are their own entities, so this would be its own subdivision, the Grant Creek subdivision, Hunter's Run Section 1, Hunter's Run Section J.
Okay.
Any other questions to staff? Is there someone here to represent the application?
Good evening. I'm David Robertson, Special Assets Officer with the Bank of Fayette County. Here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Anyone have any questions?
Is the owner of Lot 11 okay with the?
He is. He was very receptive to it.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, he said just more trees for him to mow
Yeah.
around, but he's
I just-
okay with it.
The property tax potential property tax implications, I just want to make sure he's aware.
Well, it would be minimal, but yes, he understood that as well.
So, is the Bank of Fayette County gonna build a house on that lot?
Sir?
Is the Bank of Fayette County gonna build just one single
No,
house on that lot?
actually, we've got it for sale. We've got it under contract, and the potential buyer is talking about one house. He understands. We really can't do anything with closing the property until we get a recorded plat, and then we deed that .57 acres to Lot 11 homeowner, and then we will be selling him 16.06 acres, which will be one lot he can't subdivide.
Okay. Any other questions? No further questions. Thank you
All right,
for being here.
thank you,
sir.
guys.
Okay, with final plats, we don't require a public hearing, but we do have two people that signed cards, and I'll call out your name, and once again, you can speak up to 3 minutes in favor or against this application. The first name I have is William Randall at 7710 Hunters Creek, if you wish to come forward at this time. It's already gone, okay. See here, okay.
William Randall, 7710 Hunters Creek Drive, OB. I'm the owner, my wife and I are the owner of Lot 11. I talked to Mr. Robertson at length before the meeting. I was somewhat confused about the potential right-of-way if needed. Mr. McCluskey straightened me out about that before the meeting. I understand. I understand from Mr. Robertson as part of the sale that they're going to have with the potential buyer that it is one lot only and will not be subdivided in the future. Hence, if it's not subdivided, the immediate need for a right-of-way or road will probably go away. Maybe in the future, and I understand that. I'm good with that. I don't have a problem. And I'm looking forward for a new neighbor. Maybe he'll cut the weeds at the front of the road, and I won't have to go cut them anymore. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I have another card here. It's Bob Gitter. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. 8076 Hunters Creek Drive. Are you here?
Hello, my name is Bob Gitter. I'm a resident in Hunters Creek, our Hunters Run subdivision. I am the president of the HOA in Hunters Run, and we do have some concerns about the development of a house, a road, or whatever in our subdivision. One of the biggest concerns is safety. This past year, we developed a situation in our neighborhood where the police department was called in due to our security cameras from Flock Security. And it registered a stolen vehicle that had entered in our subdivision. Granted, we only have one way in. And this situation developed pretty fast, and the police were out there within 2 minutes once they were notified, apprehended the gentleman in Memphis, which Memphis actually helped us on that situation. But what I'm getting at is, I do know the road right now is being, possibly in future reference if needed. But the safety concern that we have is open a roadway through there from Youngblood to Hunters Run or Hunters Creek area. It's going to make it like a thoroughbred of crime, cars flying up and down the road as we have now due to, granted, it is our residents there now, but if you open that up, it opens up a passageway for crime to exist even more, to bypass or to get away and go up in Crumpler up to Memphis. And all throughout the night, that's all we hear is traffic up and down the road, especially now with no debris or anything. It's all opened up with the tree lines are all cleaned and everything. But the concern of the one house, what I have a concern is apparently it looks like, because I rode through Youngblood several times, I looked at it prior to this, the only way to access this one house is through Hunters Creek Road. So therefore, they have to come through our neighborhood to access that house. And once that road, if it does happen, then now we have the opportunity of more stuff could possibly be developed in the future. What I mean by is, who's to say, and it says it can't be subdivided and everything, but down the road, we all know how houses being developed, developers come in, things happen. Next thing you know, we're built back up with more houses in our neighborhood. Granted, we are an HOA. Granted, we do have 130-something homes in our area that we actually, in our community, in our little subdivision. But I object to it, and I'm sure 90% of us do. But tonight, if you would see, at the Hunters Run, would y'all raise your hand? We're very well represented, and most of them have spoke. Now, we did get some clarity tonight, and we do appreciate the clarity of the road being further down the road, because we didn't have that at first and everything. But like I said, we do object to it because they're having to access everything. Another problem we're having with is the roads now are not being maintained. We have pothole city in Hunter's Run subdivision. And this is way back before all the storms and everything else. They have yet to be addressed. We have drainage problems in Hunter's Run area. And that creek that's on the other side of Youngblood is about 20 feet deep. And it's about 20 feet wide. So there would have to be a bridge brought in and built or some way to get across it. That is the main creek that drains all of our drainage from all through our community. So there's a lot of different issues. I hope you look at it real close, and if nothing else, I hate to say this, but table it, discuss it more, lay it out. I know it's one house, but our houses right now in our neighborhood are very well built. They're built back in 1988. They're big houses, a lot of square footage, and we hope that it will be somewhere in the neighborhood, if the house does get built, that it is a house of that size. Property value is one of our main concerns in our area because we do value what we have. Most lots are 2 acres or more in some cases in our neighborhood. Now, granted, this gentleman, whoever gets the house or buys it, whatever, they have the whole 16 acres, which is a blessing. I mean, granted, it's nice. But we do, like I said, I do represent the Hunter's Run area and everything, and like I said, we do object to it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Once again, just raise your hands if you're here on this one application so we'll know how many are here tonight. Thank you so much. Once again, we're not required to have a public hearing for this, but we wanted to hear your comments if you completed a card. I'll now just, the commissioners now, if you have any questions or comments or motions, we'll go from there.
Can you restate why it was tabled last time? Just so
Yep.
the public knows. Because we're limited on final plats on saying, hey, you can't do something on the property that you own.
Yeah, so it was tabled on October 11th, 2022. The Planning Commission voted to table an application for a one-lot, single-family residential subdivision by the previous owner until such time more information regarding future home site, proposed right-of-way, and utilities was provided. There was some concern about the property owner taking more trees down that the neighborhood wanted to see took down, and there was some other concerns about running utilities over where we was going to actually place the home. Those were addressed in this application.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other comments?
Just to clarify, on this, the road that's connecting Hunters Creek to Youngblood, which seems to be the biggest point of contention, is that a requirement? Do we have to have that? Can they develop this lot as a cul-de-sac, or what can be done about that road? Do we have any alternative about that road?
The road looks just like the road that was vacated. So it's a proposed future road. Subdivisions are required to be connected by the International Fire Code that the city has adopted. Again, this is a proposed right-of-way. It looks just like the one that's vacated. If this was a different looking plat, if we were here placing the home, the road would look just like the vacated one. It would be in light gray instead of dark black, so you can see it.
So because of International Fire Code, that's the reason why these two streets have to connect.
Yes, sir, and I think, to Jeremiah's point, you have a large right-of-way that's been unimproved that appears to have originally been intended to extend Craft Road, and that's been there. It's there right now, so there is a very wide right-of-way right through the center of the property. It's unimproved right-of-way. So what's being proposed tonight is the same thing in so much that it's an unimproved right-of-way. It's just a lot smaller, as you can see on the map, rather than it being a 80-foot wide facility. It's now down to a 50-foot wide facility. And I would point out that maybe at some point in the distant future there could be a different board here, there could be a whole different group of people, and there could be a future board that does decide to make that connection. but it's not something that's proposed tonight. Again, the impact of one single home just doesn't warrant, you know, a full improvement. And that would be a very expensive road to build too, because basically you have to bridge Grants Creek, which runs along the northern. So the likelihood of that happening, i.e. that being improved, is very, very slim. But it's something that could happen in the distant future, long after all of us are probably gone. But it's something that you do have to have, you know, essentially to meet the fire code, at least leave that possibility out there.
Okay, any other discussion by the commissioners or any motions? All right, we have a motion by Mr. Stratton to approve the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Jones. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. So it has been approved and will be put forward to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen at their meeting. And if you wish to stay, you can do so, but it will take just a few minutes if you wish to leave at this time. Have order, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I know it's been a long night for everyone tonight, so but it's worth the time that we spend on these items. Under new business, item number 2 is an application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Bob Barber on behalf of property owner Betty Funderburk. The request is to rezone 41.43 plus or minus acres from AR agricultural residential to R1 single family residential for the purpose of creating the Whitten View subdivision to consist of 83 single family detached residential lots and 1 common open space. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of Church Road and Sandage Road. We'll now have the staff presentation.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, sir, the very next application that follows this one is the preliminary plat. Staff beneficiary staff just presents everything at once, and then you can have one public hearing and.
Okay, do we need to read the
Yes,
third
sir.
application?
You can read the other application, but then when it comes to voting, you need to vote on them separately.
Okay, if you'll pull up the third application, item number. Yeah, this is an application for a preliminary plat for Whitten subdivision submitted by Bob Barber on behalf of property owner Betty Funderburk. The request is to create a residential subdivision with 83 lots and one common open space from 41.43 plus or minus acres. The subject property is zoned AR, Agricultural Residential District, and an associated application proposes to rezone it to R1 Single Family Residential District. This subject property is located at the southeast corner of Church Road and Sandage Road. These will be presented jointly with staff, and we can vote separately on each item as they come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I'd like to do is introduce the site. The site location is, it is a 41.43 acre subject property. It's located on the south side of Church Road. If you were to proceed east on Church Road from Pleasant Hill Road, past Sandage Road, you would find the subject property on the south side. There is a 5-acre out parcel, which is not included within the rezoning request by the applicant. You can see the 5-acre out parcel. I can get this cursor working correctly. Right here. Right there. Let's try this. Okay, as far as the application background, Bob Barker, on behalf of the property owner, Betty Funderburk, is requesting approval of a rezoning application from AR, Agricultural Residential, to R1 Single Family Residential upon the 41.43 acre portion of the subject parcel, less than except the 5-acre out parcel, which is located right here, as you saw on the previous slide. The total acreage of the whole parcel is 46.43 acres. This application is a companion case to SD 240039, the preliminary plat, which we previously discussed. Adjacent zonings consist of, sorry about that, C4 zoning, existing AR, and planned unit development. The character of the area consists of a mix of vacant to the north, rural estates to the south and east, and suburban developments to the west. As you can see from the table, that reflects those, that character and those zoning district designations. Current land use of the property is vacant and undeveloped. According to the aerial imagery, the site has been used as cropland. It was subsequently planted in pines and then cleared in late 2021. According to this comprehensive plan 2040 future land use plan, it designates the whole 46.43 acre parcel as suburban neighborhood, with which the proposed R1 zoning district does align. If this zoning request is approved, it can be reasonably expected that the 5-acre out parcel would not be developed as a minimum 1-acre residential lot in the future, which AR zoning does require. Staff finding. The criteria used to evaluate a rezoning are listed below. The original zoning classification for the property was a mistake. The applicant does not assert that the original zoning classification was a mistake, and the staff finding is that the property was zoned AR, Agricultural Residential, at the time of its annexation into the corporate limits of the city of Olive Branch in 2021. The property has not since been rezoned. There is no mistake in the current current zoning of the property, and the existing AR zoning was appropriate at the time when public sewer was unavailable in the area. The character of, okay. The character of the neighborhood has changed to such an extent to justify the proposed rezoning. The applicant's submission. The applicant contends substantial changes in the character of the neighborhood have occurred since its original rezoning that justify the proposed rezoning, and that the proposed rezoning fully complies with the suburban neighborhood place type. These changes are summarized as follows by the applicant. Margaret Manor planned unit development was built out. The 7.3 acre directly north of the site was rezoned from AR to C4 in 2018 and hereafter. Rezoning and subsequent construction of commercial development associated with the Margaret Manor PUD during the build-out time frame. Public utilities have been extended to accommodate the above stated developments and increased vehicular capacity from a rural 2-lane road cross-section in 2010 to a major 5-lane traffic artery, increasing traffic volumes by 15 to 30%. The staff finding is that there have been significant changes in the general vicinity of the subject property, from predominantly agricultural uses and agricultural residential properties to a mix of vacant commercial properties, AR estate lots, and small planned residential lots. Large estate lot subdivisions to the south were developed when public sewer lines were not available in the area. Since then, public utility infrastructure has been extended along Church Road and Sandage Road, making possible Margaret Manor PUD. Public utility infrastructure is also presently being extended into the Pleasant Hills neighborhood. Lots in the adjacent Margaret Manor subdivision to the west, constructed after sewer became available in the area, range from 7,400 square feet to 40,000 square feet in size. The 5-acre out parcel should be included in this rezoning to reflect the suburban neighborhood development of adjacent neighborhoods in the recent past. This inclusion would reflect a systematic planning process as opposed to ad hoc planning zoning of the area. A public need exists for the rezoning. The applicant's submission, the applicant contends the rezoning request has been proposed to meet the ongoing public need for quality housing, and that the City of Olive Branch Comprehensive Plan projects to add 10,000 to 20,000 people by the year 2040. The staff finding is that Olive Branch has seen exponential growth in recent years, and thus the housing stock does need to increase. Future land use map designates the subject property as suburban neighborhood with single-family residential as the predominant land use. The future land use map in the Comprehensive Plan 2040, which articulates the city's land use public need policies, designates the property in its entirety as suburban neighborhood. Olive Branch has seen population growth in recent years, and proposed construction of new single-family housing in the city implies a response by the development community and the city to the public need for a housing stock volume to meet the needs of future city residents. The staff recommendation. It's recognized that the development pattern in the neighborhood has changed in the last quarter of a century from rural residential with predominantly estate lots characteristic of developments in the AR zoning district, rural estate, to suburban neighborhoods with predominantly smaller residential lots that are characteristic of R1 districts. The Comprehensive 2040 Land Use Plan, land use map designates the subject property as suburban neighborhood, which the R1 district aligns with, not rural estate, which the AR zoning district conforms to. And there is significant public need for attainable housing residential lots in the city of Olive Branch, which can be provided by the R1 zoning district. Without detriment to the rural estate residential character of adjoining subdivisions to the south and east by adopting various best subdivision developmental practices. The staff recommends to table this application and request that the applicant incorporate the 5-acre out parcel piece at the southeast corner of the intersection of Church Road and Sandage Road, which is currently excluded from the area of this rezoning application, into the land area to be rezoned. Furthermore, the applicant should revise the preliminary plat accordingly to incorporate this 5 acres into the lot layout, similar to the presence of residential lots at the said intersection of Margaret Manor subdivision to the west. I'll move on to item number 3. This is the same map. I think we've already covered this. Again, this is the site location, the 41.43 acre subject property that's located on the south side of Church Road. The 5 acre out parcel is not included. Again, the background is that Bob Barber, on behalf of property owner Betty Funderburk, requests a preliminary plat approval of a 41.43 acre portion of the subject parcel, less than accept the 5 acres. This application is the companion case to the previous rezoning case, which requests zoning of the 41.43 acres. Total acreage of the entire tract is 46.43 acres. If approved, this application will plat 83 single-family lots and 1 common open space lot, which is in the northeast corner of the property. You can see COS A84. The character of the area consists of a mix of vacant to the north, rural estate to the south and east, and suburban developments to the west. This current land use of the property is vacant and undeveloped. According to aerial image, again, it's been used as cropland, pines, and then cleared in 2021. And the comprehensive land, plan 2040 future land use plan designates the whole parcel, the entire parcel, as suburban neighborhood. The analysis is zoning and bulk regulation are the factors that are used to evaluate the preliminary plat application are listed below. The zoning and bulk regulations. The subject property is presently located within AR. AR requires a minimum lot size of 1 acre and a minimum lot width of 110, measured at the 50-foot front setback line. Since the applicant has filed a companion case, ZP 2416, to request rezoning of the subject property from AR to R1, single-family residential. The purpose of the R1 zoning district is to permit the development and continued maintenance of low residential densities in an urban setting consisting primarily of single-family residential development by relatively low overall density with lots of at least 12,500 square feet per dwelling unit. All proposed lots do meet the minimum bulk regulations except for lot 41, which you can see on your map, which does not meet the required minimum lot area. That shows that lot 41 is 12,149 square feet, and staff's recommendation is that the lot should be revised to bring it into compliance. The applicant has provided tree buffers along the south, which is a 50-foot wide tree buffer, and the east, which is a 25-foot wide property, 25-foot wide tree buffer along the east side. Transportation. The preliminary plat of Wittenview subdivision proposes 2 minor streets, both having a 50-foot right-of-way running east and west. One of these streets will provide access into the subdivision from Sandage Road and would be connected to Northwood Drive and Pleasant Hills subdivision, providing a secondary.
If y'all will remain silent during the presentation, you will have time to make your issues known when we get to the comments stage. So please remain silent until the presentation's over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may continue. One of the streets would provide access into the subdivision from Sandage Road and would be connected to Northwood Drive and Pleasant Hills subdivision, providing a secondary means of egress and ingress for Pleasant Hills. One other minor street is proposed to connect the subdivision to Church Road East. All streets are proposed to be dedicated in future public street right-of-ways for general public use. Roundabouts are also provided as traffic calming measures. As you can see right here, roundabouts. The comprehensive plan articulates a number of goals, objectives, and policies that are worth noting regarding the design of the preliminary plat. Goal 2 is to maintain and expand transportation systems to promote quality of life. Objective 2.2 states the city will continue its efforts to expand and maintain an effective, safe, and efficient transportation system available for vehicular traffic, cyclists, and pedestrians. And policy 2.2.8 provides, in the interest of providing pedestrian connectivity and improved traffic management, New subdivisions will be required to connect to existing stubbed out roads where feasible and to install road stub outs for connections to future subdivisions. The proposed street circulation plan does not provide connection to the proposed 5-acre parcel. Out parcel immediately on the southeast corner of Church Road and Sandage Road intersection. The transportation plan should be revised to provide vehicular and pedestrian access to the northwest corner of the larger entire tract, as well as incorporating acceleration and deceleration lanes along the existing arterial streets. Public utility services such as water and gas are available along Church Road and at the terminus of Northwood Drive. These utilities could be connected to provide a loop connection. Public sewer lines are available on the west right-of-way of Sandage Road, and subdivision utility connections should be coordinated with the city's engineering department. There are no variances requested by the applicant. The recommended motion is to table the application and request the applicant revise the preliminary plat to incorporate the 5-acre out parcel into the lot layout similar to the presence of residential lots at the intersection in Margaret Manor subdivision to the west. And additionally, the following issues should be addressed and information provided. Secure approval of the rezoning, include the currently excluded 5-acre tract, 5-acre area in the overall design, provide a note stating the 25-foot wide tree preservation and 50-foot wide tree preservation. Add a note on the preliminary plat addressing minimum heated area of house size, minimum 70% brick, facade on all sides of houses, and no front-facing garages, including along Church Road and Sandage Road. Provide the deceleration lane and sidewalks along Church Road. Add a note on the plat requiring one large deciduous tree to be planted every 35 feet along Church Road and Sandage Road. Add a note on the plat mandating the planting of a 2.5-inch caliper deciduous tree in the frontage of each lot every 50 feet. Pardon me. One 2.5-inch caliper deciduous tree shall be planted in the front yard of each home prior to use and occupancy of the house, and 2 trees shall be planted for corner lots or lots with 80-foot road frontage. Add a note on the plat requiring the subdivision sign to be monument style, no more than 8 feet high. Grading, drainage, and civil construction plans must be approved by the city engineer. All streetlight plans, identification signage, acceleration, deceleration, and traffic control signs and devices are to be approved by Department of Engineering and Planning Department prior to installation. Plans for stormwater detention, landscape, and signage in common open spaces for public purposes are subject to review and approval by the city planning and development director or his designee. And for final plat submittal, the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions will need to be submitted. All utilities and services to be installed underground. And that concludes staff presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of staff?
I have a question. Well, so we accomplished the fire code with the 2 entrances, one to Church and one to Sandage. What was the regulation that you cited for the need for access to Northwood Drive?
Well, the comprehensive land use plan also addresses that as well as the fire code.
Okay.
What's your question?
Policy 2.28 of the comprehensive plan provides, in the interest of providing pedestrian connectivity and improved traffic management, new subdivisions will be required to connect to existing stubbed out roads where feasible and to install road stub outs for connections to future subdivisions. That's in the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? And please remain silent until it's your time to come forward and make your comments. Please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add to that question, the subdivision regulations also require that where you have step streets to an adjoining piece of property that is proposed for subdivision, that subdivision should connect to that adjoining street. It's also in the subdivision regulations.
Any other questions? If not, if someone will come forward to represent the application, I think Mr. Barber is representing this.
Mr. Chairman, yes, thank you very much, Commissioners. Good evening. Robert Barber with Orion Planning Design, 919 Getwell Road in Hernando. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you. The staff report is very thorough. I don't want to belabor or review anything unnecessarily. I did want to flip through just briefly the presentation we did when we had a neighborhood meeting and get to a couple of slides at the end. You can just flip through Whitten Heights. We've already looked at the site. Continue on, please, a song. The AR zoning as it is now, and continuing on. With the comprehensive plan, I will stop here just for a moment because the mention was made several times about the 5 acres on the corner as an out parcel, which we're not asking for any zoning tonight. The applicant, Mr. Funderburk, wanted to evaluate options for perhaps neighborhood commercial designation on that corner. Having said that, is open to redesign and including it in the residential portion, but we did want to explore the options on the corner while we had the opportunity to do so. Because, as you'll see, the surrounding other property to the north and to the northwest there are commercial. But that's not at issue. It's the subdivision itself or the rezoning for the subdivision, so you can continue on. Just another view of the site. You can flip it on through till we get to continuing. We've reviewed the design. The builder is with us. Mr. Skip Miller can speak to unit design. He has multiple communities in the area and in DeSoto County, some in Olive Branch, and he'll be able to speak to that in just a moment. And if you flip the next couple of slides, I think you'll finally get to sort of some elevations of the homes for Legacy Homes as the company, and you can continue on a song just to give a sense of the character of the proposed construction on the site. Just a couple of more slides there, and then go on to the next. Finally, this last couple of slides is just one for the record, is documenting or restating what was already included and summarized in the staff report, which is a justification, change in the character of the area, including the construction of Goodman Road, the build out of the surrounding subdivisions, Marguerite Manor, the change in the development to the north of it, and then certainly the City of Olive Branch Comprehensive Plan itself, which designates the corner suburban commercial, and with which we comply with the exception of one lot, which we need to adjust a couple of hundred square feet out of that. So I won't go through that in detail, but that memo was provided and was acknowledged in the staff report. So based on those items, I'm here to answer questions. You have the neighborhood design. Again, the property owner is here, Mr. Funderburk, along with Mr. Miller, and also our engineer, Mr. Andy Richardson, can speak to any specific issue that may need to be addressed on the plat itself, and then just to restate, open to the redesign and the inclusion of the corner as necessary there, though it is a candidate for neighborhood commercial development, which Mr. Funderburk would restrict to a C4 zoning. It was mentioned earlier, C4 is a holding zone to be restricted to offices and a very small scale and light retailing for the neighborhood. But nonetheless, the commission decision is to move with the staff report, that option is certainly a route that would be taken. Can I answer anything?
Any questions?
Are you saying that you're okay with rolling in the 5 acres, or tabling it and then coming back with the 5 acres included, or you want it included?
We are. We wanted to explore the, available to us as an option. We are open to exactly what you're saying, the table with the redesign and the extension of the residential lots into the 5 acres.
Okay. So are you requesting it to be tabled, or do you want?
We're acknowledging the staff's recommendation.
Copy that.
Any other questions?
And I can state it more strongly than that if I need to, but we're acknowledging what you have before you.
Any questions of the builder? No further questions, then.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're going to open it for public discussion. Once again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Try not to be repetitive if you can, and only one trip to the podium. We've had previous meetings where people try to come up at least twice. And I've got a long list. I'll call out your name if you'll come forward, and then at the end, if you have not completed a card, we'll raise your hand and you have the right to be heard. So the first name is Gary Little, 6400 Northwood Cove.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Gary Little. Moved to 6400 Northwood Cove. March will be 40 years ago. My wife and our daughter. We've been in that neighborhood and been very happy, except with all of the growth and congestion and traffic and being on a racetrack at Church Road and Pleasant Hill Road. I can't imagine homeowners wanting to live on a 5-lane highway there in this proposed development zone. Church Road being 5-lane and so busy. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure how well that'll go over, but apparently that's not our concern at this point. Our concern is the proposed access to our subdivision on Northwood Drive. All of my friends and neighbors that I've talked to about it pretty much has the same feeling. Totally no. We, most of our homes in there on 3-acre lots. Mine, I believe, is 3.2 or 3.3, but excuse me. We have lots of room to do our exercising and walking and enjoying the countryside there, but I don't feel like that we would want to enhance this development over here by allowing them access to what we've acquired and owned all these years to open up from this 83 single-family detachments, open it up to our neighborhood to bring their motorcycles and their four-wheelers and their walking trails into our area. We just don't feel like it'd be very compatible, and also the traffic that'll be created by those 80 homes there is of concern, but our major concern is not to share this section of Northwood to enhance the development of this subdivision. And I feel like that's the purpose of it, is just to enhance this congestion and say, okay, you can go right out Northwood there and you got acres of walking, and we don't have sidewalks, of course. We don't have bike trails. We don't have anything to accommodate that type of traffic. So just to express to you my feelings and all of my neighbors' feelings, We just feel like that would be a slap in the face to tie in this section of Northwood into that subdivision.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The next name is Sonny Barkley, 6460 Northwood Cove, Olive Branch.
I'm Sonny Barkley. I live at 6460 Northwood Cove. In 1979, we bought our land to build a house. We built in 1980, which means we've been there for 43 years. One of the reasons that we chose this land for our forever home, and they'll probably drag us out in coffins, is that it didn't have multiple accesses. We like the one access only because of safety and security. We don't have people jetting through, having stolen something somewhere else, and they're rushing through to escape. We have just the people who live there. We are convenient for people who are doing their walking and that sort of thing. But the no-through traffic reduces the number of cars, the amount of traffic, and it greatly increases our safety, not to mention the security that one entrance, one exit allows. We don't see any benefit to Pleasant Hill Estates to have that access. We don't see any benefit for the people of this new subdivision to have that access. They've got access to Sandage, they've got access to Goodman. There's no reason for them to cut through our subdivision and add to their traffic and their difficulty in getting out. So there's no benefit to either. You've talked about this committee looking for the safety and security of your people, of us. Now, we weren't even in the city until recently. So why should comprehensive plan of the city or regulations for this subdivision to have more entrances and exits, why should that destroy our community, our security, and our safety? Our kids can walk in the street now. We're safe. We're secure. We have very little crime because there's not a lot of ways to get out. We feel that having this entrance will do nothing but disrupt. We don't want it. You see these people here? We're Pleasant Hill Estates. We don't want another access. We have adequate access for fire trucks, police. Police have no trouble getting in to see us now, do they? No. We do not need another access or exit. That will not enhance their subdivision, and maybe that was a part of the comprehensive plan before we ever came into Olive Branch, but it should not destroy what we have, what we came for, and what we invested in. You talked about the quality of life. This isn't going to enhance the quality of life for them. It won't enhance the quality for us. Why would you want to disrupt the tranquility and the safety of our subdivision just because you're adding another subdivision and more houses? All power to you. We don't care if you add the subdivision, but leave us alone. If the Planning Commission exists for the safety and security of your people, which are now us, then you will deny that entrance to Northwood Cove. It doesn't do any benefit to the subdivision. There's no benefit to us. The new subdivision, the new regulations should not apply to us. We should be grandfathered in as to who we are and what we were and why we bought there. So we would like for you to table the request of the subdivision plat until they remove the access to Northwood Cove, to Northwood Road. None of us want it, none of us need it, and neither do they. It's no benefit for them or for us. So we oppose the entrance connecting to Northwood. We want you to deny the entrance so we can keep our tranquility, our safety, and our settlement, and the peace that we had when we built out there and when we bought. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Angela Cornell, 4860 Wildwood.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for hearing our concerns and our comments tonight. We did not obviously build 40 years ago. I'm not even 40 years old. But we did buy our house back in the summer of 2016. One of the reasons we loved the community was because of how quaint it was and quiet and peaceful. And honestly, love the agricultural. I have chickens, love the little area. But like everyone said, we have 3 to 5 acres. The entire area does. The Witten View subdivision will be a different style of neighborhood, and that's fine, but the application proposes to do 41.43 acres to create 83 homes. With the update that they said, it's about a quarter-acre lots. It's a lot more congested, and you're looking at adding 83 people who can drive past my home. I live on Wildwood and Northwood, the corner of that lot, and I can probably count on one hand, or both hands, how many people drive past my house a day. But adding 83 more people passing my house every single day, potentially to not have to drive straight onto Church Road, it's a lot. And, you know, you're looking at 41.43 acres. Myself and 10 of my neighbors equal 41 acres. And you want to put 83 people on that property. I understand Jeremiah's comment earlier about the fire and the risk of 2 entrances and exits. Completely get that, but I don't know how it adds benefit to us fighting through a second way following 83 people. Or that's 83 homes. That's not even 83 people, right? That's single homes. I understand the benefit to growing the community, and we really appreciate that. But we would really love to not have all that extra traffic into our little quaint community. And then I'm glad y'all addressed the 5 acres, because that was a concern of mine as well, about what they wanted to do with that little corner lot. But you already did that, so thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Chelsea Day, 6411 Rolling Hills.
I have no idea what time it is, but good evening. My name is Chelsea Day. We are new to Olive Branch. I grew up in Memphis. I'm not going to go over why I'm here, but a lot of you probably understand why. It's a pretty large piece of land. It's about 4 acres. It's pretty shocking. I know we don't live in the middle of nowhere. A lot of us really wish that we did. And so, you know, I work in real estate, and I understand the need, obviously, to build out, big, smaller. Investors, I mean, they want to make money. But this is a small community. It's a small number of houses. They're big houses. There are investments. But we need to think about, I know I can't really ask questions and get a lot of clear answers right now, maybe at the next meeting. But as far as regulations and code and the amount of exits that we have to have, I think we're okay on that. We don't really necessarily need that. Also, in regards to the existing roads, albeit not a cove visually, I guess it's a road that ends, and I've heard the word require multiple times. Subdivisions are required to connect to existing roads in another subdivision. We used to have an HOA. I'm kind of wishing that I, along with about 5 other people, had come together and done that about 2 years ago so that we would have a little bit more of a solid board, if you will. But, I mean, we can do it if we need to. But it's just it's rolling hills. I don't know if any of you have been there, but I cannot imagine there being traffic with one stop sign throughout the entire neighborhood. We don't have sidewalks. Envision that. That's not 84 people, that's like 250 people. That's a lot of cars coming in through one entrance, not stopping, and probably going 50 miles an hour, maybe 35 to 50. You know, they hit my child, he's flat. And I'm not here for that. And that's my main concern. The safety and the terrain of that neighborhood does not bode well for this situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ricky Deaton, 6280 Northwood Drive.
Ricky Denton, 6280 Northwood Drive. I've been in this neighborhood for about 30 years. First of all, I don't, you know, if we keep developing this area at the rate we're going, it's going to be another South Haven, another Memphis. It's just going to ruin Olive Branch. It's on its way. I think this parcel of land should remain agricultural residential. I mean, to the south and the east of it is agricultural residential. My neighborhood, 3 to 5 acre lots, and here you're going to set down an R2 right next to it. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The density is way too high. It doesn't fit our neighborhood's character, and yet you're wanting to force it into our little section of paradise that we all consider it to be. The traffic coming out of that neighborhood is gonna, like everybody else has said, it's gonna affect our neighborhood when there's no need. If they weren't wanting to develop this parcel, I don't believe you all or anyone else in Olive Branch would be that concerned about how those poor people have only got one way in and one way out. It's only been that way for 40, 50 years, and now all of a sudden you're worried about it? I don't think there's been any problems with that. And, you know, I think some of us will be checking the code to see what that really says. But at any rate, it's just not needed. We don't want it. You've done us quite enough favors with the sewer that you're putting in, the water that you're putting in that we don't need. Just leave us alone.
All right. David Parsons, 6211 Northwood. Is that who? David coming forward?
I'm not a speaker. I'm not into politics and all that stuff. But what people just said, that's already spoke, they mean every word of it. As Ricky said, leave us alone. That's it.
Good, thank you. All right, if y'all will just please hold your applause so we can get through all the comments. James Mingarelli, I hope I pronounced your name right.
I'd just like to piggyback off what everybody else said about the access to Northwood Drive. We do not see any benefit in it at all. I would ask y'all to put yourself in our situation. Act like you live in Pleasant Hill Estates and it's coming by your home. That's all we ask. We don't see any benefit to connecting to Northwood Drive and having access to that other neighborhood. We're not in California. One way in, one way out fine, is perfect for us. We just ask you to put yourself in our situation, okay? Thank you.
All right, Brent Anderson, 5976 Rolling Hills.
Good evening. I'm, as a few people here, moved here from Tennessee. I moved here from Collierville. I actually built a house here, kicking and screaming, but made my wife happy. And we moved into Marguerite Manor to be close to our grandbabies. We stayed there 3 years. The neighborhood was congested, a lot of traffic in and out everywhere. We did have sidewalks, safety for us. But my wife wasn't happy. We had no trees. So we ended up, I've always seen the neighborhood that we live in now, put our house up for sale. I believe by God's grace that a house opened up at the exact moment, and I moved into, or actually drove down the driveway to look at the house, and I knew I was home. It made me feel good. My house is one of the last houses on Rolling Hills that will back up to this new subdivision being built. The road that they'd like to cut into our neighborhood is about 20 yards from the back of my house, or back of my property line. Like everybody has said, that one way in, one way out is fine. Traffic increased, but I envy the people behind me that have been here 30, 40, even one here been here 50 years. I see people walking up and down the street for exercise. I'm worried about not just the traffic coming through, but for the safety. I turned from church onto Pleasant Hill, and I noticed there's been wrecks. You see skid marks, you see all kinds of, so we're increasing the amount of traffic just in that one corner, whether it go residential or it's going to go commercial right on that corner. But if you take an overhead view of everything, there's a lot of agricultural land around still being developed. I've passed combines all around. So changing it doesn't change the fact that we're going to look at going into our neighborhood. People are going to move to Mississippi. And even though I kicked and screamed coming to Mississippi because I was born and bred a Tennessee boy, I want to say that I'm happy I live in Tennessee. I mean, excuse me, I live in Mississippi. I live in Mississippi, and I'm very happy. I love going to Piggly Wiggly. I am not going to lie. But cutting into our neighborhood is wrong. It's just a redundant entrance or exit onto Sandage. So you already got an entrance and exit into Sandage. So all you're going to do is cut through our neighborhood to go back onto Sandage again. So it's just a redundant thing. So I hope you guys really, truly look at it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Daniel Hyder, 5648 Rolling Hills.
So, I'm somewhat new to Pleasant Hill, or the subdivision. I only bought a house about 2 years ago, 5648 Rolling Hills. I just left a neighborhood in a similar fashion as what's being proposed. I had to leave due to crime, extreme crime, drugs, murders, the gambit. There was nothing to see the SWAT team in the neighborhood, every other night with the helicopters flying overhead. And I was just in South Haven. I was raised in Nesbitt before the casinos came. And we had the run of the land. We didn't have to worry about the crime coming down. And if we're going to put 83 houses out my back door, I didn't hear anything about a proposal to protect us from that, because there's nothing stopping those small houses from becoming rentals, and that's the immediate point where that neighborhood turned into a crime factory. The other thing is, we got drag racing on Church Road right in front of where that subdivision's gonna be proposed. I see wrecks every day or every other day right there at Sandage and Church. We're gonna have 83 more homes with that much more traffic. And then we're going to give them a back access to avoid the cops through my neighborhood. I bought this house to get away from all that. And I wanted it to be where I lived for a long time. I'm sure there'll be beautiful houses, but I don't hear anything about a provision to protect us from what will come if it's not stopped. You know, I was under the understanding that this subdivision was going to be larger homes with higher values. It won't be long before those values drop down, you know, and I don't have the most expensive house on the street. There are a lot of nicer houses, absolutely, but it won't be long before those property values affect us, you know. So we're gonna lose property value, we're gonna increase crime, we're gonna increase danger, and there's no positive for us. I mean, am I the only one that just found out it's gonna be 83 homes on minuscule lots? They're only 1,200 square foot? Because I just found out, and that is literally what I just left. So this is extremely scary to me. You know, I worked a long time to make the money it took to buy the house that I got. You know, I bought it during the height of the property values in a bidding war because I knew it would be safe for my daughters and my wife, and we could live there for decades. But if we're gonna plop rental subdivisions, future rental subdivisions all around us, you know, I got to run again. You know, that's what I have to say.
All right, thank you. William Jackson, 5924 Rolling Hills.
Hey, good evening. William Jackson, 5924 Rolling Hills. Don't think I need to say that I'm opposed to the access. I don't know if I missed it in the PowerPoint, but was there going to be an HOA?
Can't answer that question at this moment. We'll try to answer all the questions at the end.
Also, I am opposed to it being changed from AR to the density that it is. The safety or the traffic concerns that are currently in place on Church Road, I would think need to be addressed. Not sure if there's been a traffic study done recently, but I think before moving forward on changing the zoning, a light would probably be beneficial at Sandage and Church. I noticed the buffer, which is 50 foot on the south and then 25 on the east. Why is it only 25 on the east and not 50 on the east? Other than that, I'm against it. It should be lower density, if anything, and traffic study for a red light. Thank you.
Charles Williams, 4505 Cherry Tree.
Good evening. I'll try to make it short. You know, we like our neighborhood the way it is. We like being isolated. We like being left alone. We didn't ask to be annexed. And like the gentleman just said, that's too dense for this area. It's too dense for the current infrastructure. The infrastructure is more than just the sewage and the electrical, but the traffic issue is too much. If it stays zoned AR, they can do 1 acre lots on that property. It would be a nice buffer to transition from our 3 acre lots down to what's in Margarita Estates. You know, I'm sorry for what you experienced there on Dunn Lane with the tornadoes. We don't have fires like California, and we have a lot more crime than tornadoes, as terrible as they are. And we would like to stay just one access in and out. Thank you.
Thank you. James Gore, 8685 Sutter Lane. Is Mr. Gore here? Okay, Donald Harrison, 5977 Spring Creek Drive.
Yes, hello, I'm Donald Harrison, as you say, 5977 Spring Creek Drive. I first moved to Pleasant Hill Estates in 1996. You know, DeSoto County's changed a lot. Olive Branch has changed a lot. And I have too, since that time. But the appeal of our neighborhood is a country feel, but yet you're only 10 minutes from 2 different Krogers and then shopping. One thing about the proposed development that I'm very strongly opposed to is the 5 acres that will be commercial. I mean, it will be eventually if it is, rezoning is approved. The commercial is, there's ample commercial space at Pleasant Hill and Church Road. You know, you got 3 different corners there. So we don't need commercial at Sandage and Church Road. You know, the traffic is difficult enough trying to get out on Sandage. Concerning the tie-in on Northwood, no, we don't need that. There's virtually no benefit to the proposed new development. You got the Marguerite Manor, you have plenty of homes there. I ask you to oppose the zoning change. Let it remain AR, develop 1 acre lots, that'd be a good buffer. Our neighborhood is an asset to the city of Olive Branch, and I would like for you to protect and enhance our neighborhood and vote against this rezoning. Thank you.
Jill Williams, 4802 Robinwood Lane. Jill Williams. Okay, I didn't see you coming forward.
Good evening. I'm not going to reiterate everything everyone else said. I'm against the tie-in. I also want to make y'all aware that they keep on talking about a stub out. Northwood is not a stub out. It is a cul-de-sac with 2 houses in that cul-de-sac, number 1. It is not a stub out street. I'm also against rezoning that to R1. At a minimum, it should be made AR, and as some of my other neighbors have said, it should be a low-density housing with houses on par with the houses that are in our neighborhood, okay? I also have to hand to y'all a petition that virtually everyone in our neighborhood has signed about blocking the add-on of Northwood's tie-in to Witten Hill subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Lydia Taylor, 5926 Spring Creek Drive.
I'll try to keep this short so that we can all go to bed. I have a few questions and then a new perspective. At this point, I'm wondering if all of Church Road is going to become one big neighborhood, because from Tanger to 305, it's all becoming residential. I realize some of that is South Haven, and then the rest of it is Olive Branch, but just something to think about. And then keeping Mississippi's natural beauty, its flora and fauna. A lot of us value being able to see deer prance around in our yard. Being able to see or have natural blooming flowers and all of that, and then you're bringing in a neighborhood that has, I don't know what he said, like 1 tree per home. It's not something that is nice to see, is a bunch of houses. Mississippi is not a museum of houses. It is a beautiful and wooded area that we would like to keep it. As a new perspective, I am a teacher. I work at Center Hill Elementary School. I teach art. We have about 750 kids, 800 kids. We have a lot of kids. I got a classroom in December or November. Before that, I was on a cart. I taught art on a cart like this, and I rolled around to a classroom where there was 28 to 32 kids, because we have to do combined classrooms, which means one classroom splits up so that they have 5 kids in groups, and then they send them to blend in with other classrooms. It's a nightmare. It's a mess. I don't know if you've ever taught recently. It's not that great. and we don't get paid a lot. So as a teacher, schools are very overcrowded as is. You keep letting more people in, but you don't do any, but it seems like we're not getting a lot of help as teachers to keep up with the schools. So how do you expect teachers to keep up with the influx of children coming in? There's a national teacher shortage already. We don't get a lot of benefits at all. In fact, we get a lot of negatives coming our way. So I just would like y'all to think about how many houses you're willing to let in. We just got an extension on one hall that allowed for 4 new classrooms, and we had to fundraise it, like through like a booster-thon or something like that. Like that's how we get the money to make the schools bigger for things like this. So I'm wondering, like, how far you're gonna let this get before you can accommodate for all of these people. And especially about the deer thing, we like being able to see our deer. And for the animals of Mississippi to be able to actually live in this state, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those are all the cards that were turned in. Is there anyone else wish to speak? Let me have a show of hands. I think, okay, we're going to be here to midnight now. I'm going to tell you. We have the show of hands once again. We'll start on this side if you'll come forward. Once again, if it has been stated, do not repeat what has been stated. You can make your comments, but try to make it short.
I will do my best. Good evening, Commission, Mr. Chair. As one of the younger...
Also, sir, state your name and address.
Yes, sir. My name's Tyler Robinson. One of the reasons why I felt like it was a reason for me to speak is I'm 4 houses down from the road connecting on North Hoyt Drive. And I have 2 young boys, both under 3. My wife, they are up and down that road all the time. The last thing I need is more traffic. That's kind of repeating what everybody else has said, but I think addressing both of these as 2 separate issues, one being the AR. That's one thing that's going to limit the lot size and help keep these lots matching what we live in and our size properties, all being 3-acre lots. I feel like they need to adhere to our area and make sure that it remains unchanged. That's one of the things that was a bullet point on the rezoning was, proving that there has been change. There's no doubt about that. I moved into the property in 2018. There's been constant change from being incorporated into Olive Branch, the utilities being put in. It's just been constant, and our neighborhood has done its best to hold what we have had and holding the type of community that we hold dear. And I think that's what needs to happen. These people need to build on our standard. And, the tying into our neighborhood to me is without a question a terrible idea. That's in no way going to benefit us. Speaking to your point, sir, I understand it may be hard to get out of your neighborhood. If a tree goes down in our neighborhood, I promise nobody's calling the city. Half of us have tractors, half of us have chainsaws. We've got it. So without a doubt, we are very self-sufficient as a community, and we'd like to keep it that way. And I feel like a lot of the development in this area is tied to the commercial on the north side of Church. I don't know the property owner of that commercial land. I feel like they're tied to this. I'd love to see the deed names, honestly. And furthermore, just the, sorry, I went blank, but the additional foot traffic is just not what we need, and I'm kind of drawing a blank here on that easement over there. But the buffer on the tree lines, I feel like the more that we can get on that, the better, just to give us some sort of buffer from this additional development. There was something else I was going to try to think of to say, and I can't remember it now.
All right, sir, your 3 minutes is up. If you
And I need
conclude.
3 minutes and 30 seconds. I have one more chainsaw point.
All right, thank you. All right, on this side, who else wishes to come forward?
So we're not good at this, but I think we're probably the newest in the neighborhood.
State your name.
I'm
and
William
address.
Collard. We live at 4900 Cherry Tree Drive. So we just moved in about 6 months ago, maybe. And the reason we moved in is we were in Memphis. We had multiple entrances, and we had kids breaking into cars all the time. And they weren't even doing it because they needed to. Most of them came from rich families who just did it because they were bored. We came from multiple entrances in the neighborhood. My sister lives in one in South Haven, like he said. They have people drive by every day that don't even live there. They just drive by because they can. That was one of the main reasons. My grandfather also lived there, so I've been there for 30 years, or they've been there for 30 years, so it's not my first time in the neighborhood. So we chose to end up renovating and moving in there. My parents live on the other half, and we live on the 3 acres, and if we move into, or the new neighborhood's gonna have half an acre, that's gonna demoralize our property value. So it's gonna bring it down. All of us worked hard. Some of them have been there 40 years for what they have. So I just wanna take that into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Okay, in the middle, well, I think we have one more over here, if you'll come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kim Love. I live on 6481 Spring Creek Drive. I've been a resident of Pleasant Hill Estates for 36 years, and we have to live with the growth, and there's no denying that, but regarding the points that you really don't want to hear re-emphasize that are so very, very important is this access to our neighborhood on the backside of this new development. Again, there is no point to it. I would have a question for you. There's a 25-foot tree, supposed barrier on the east side, and yet you're going to demolish a portion of that barrier to have access to Northwood. I'm not clear how that works. Again, there is no benefit to the residents of the new subdivision, and certainly not ours. We don't need that traffic. Furthermore, just overarching is some thoughtfulness about the development that Olive Branch is going through. When I moved here, it was 2,900 people. And you're planning on another 20,000 by 2040. It's just, the development needs to be of quality. What is the best for the people who live here? How do we make this a more livable community? Not more convenience stores, more strip malls, more gas stations, and developments that are pigeonholed in here to the number of I'm looking at 83 homes. That's 200, like the former speaker, somewhere between 250 and 300 people if you're just averaging 4 per household. The number of cars that represents, it's not congruent or beneficial to our neighborhood. And comparing what's north of Sandage to us is like apples and oranges. That it is just not the same at all. They're absolutely right. This development should be complementing where we have been, because our neighborhood is 50 years old, and we have a track record, and it is what attracts people to this area. So I would humbly suggest that you think and recommend denying this R1 categorization and the commercial development on the corner, which is totally unnecessary, and keep it in line with where our subdivision is now and the quality of life it represents.
Thank
you.
All right, we'll move over to the middle. Is there anyone?
Paul Leister, I live at 6010 Rolling Hill. What they say. I'm gonna keep it short, what they say. No commercial, no extra access, and let's leave it alone.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. All right. Did I miss someone over here? I'll get to you in just a minute. Please come on. And once again, try not to be repetitive if you want to agree with it.
Hello, my name is Francie Carnell. I live at 6005 Rolling Hills Drive. And I hear a lot about the zoning, the AR zoning. I mean, it's the reason why I moved to this neighborhood, right? I have 3.5 acres myself. I have horses. There's a lot of people in my neighborhood with horses, chickens. I have goats. I mean, if you're going to change the zoning right across the street from me, what do I have that y'all aren't going to do it to my neighborhood, right? Because all of my neighbors that's going to back up to that neighborhood, they'll probably sell. And it's just going to be a domino effect. So just keep that in mind, you know, when the dominoes fall, it's not always a great thing that you get out of it. Thanks.
I think we had someone over here on the right. If not, let's go back to the center, please.
I'm Jim Riva, 5965 Rolling Hills Drive. I've been there just short of 30 years. I agree with everything that everyone said. I just have one question. I don't understand the logic behind the access to Northwood. We have one access out of our subdivision now, and that's the Sandage. If the new subdivision access out of Northwood, they have to come in and make a 180-degree turn in a U and go back out to Sandage, where they already have an access to. So now we're giving them two accesses to Sandage, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So I think the logic behind that, they're going to say probably is that someday they're going to realize that was an error, and they're going to now try to give everybody another outlet out of our subdivision back to the east towards Craft or somewhere in that direction. So I think that's probably what's in the cards. But right now, having them come in and make a circle to go back to Sandage when they have a Sandage Road is kind of senseless.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, I think you were trying to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Latanya Reed Abram. We live at 4595 Spring Creek Drive, as well as have a property at 6167 Spring Creek Drive. We moved in the area about 4 years ago, and we moved there for the solidarity that it provides, the tranquility that it provides. We were at Elmore and Church Road in South Haven with all of the ambulance and the traffic. We wanted to get away, and we wanted to have a country life, but yet still be accessible to what's around us. And so I would ask that you would reconsider not allowing this to go through, not because it's just the right thing to do, but we deserve to have a quality of life, a quality of air for the environment. There are plenty of trees there. We get up and we go walking, and we love the area. We like it as it is, and we like our neighbors. And so we just ask that you don't change that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I wanted to say my husband is also a developer, and so I was trying to get him to come up and tell it from his point of view, because he builds subdivisions, and he builds quality subdivisions, but he goes before commissioners all the time talking about this, but he does it in a way that also considers the community. He goes in and he builds a relationship with the people that's already there to see what they want, and not just go in and build a subdivision.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, the gentleman in the middle.
Good evening. I'm Ronnie Easley. I'm at 4600 Cherry Tree Drive. I am about as far away from the proposed inlet to our subdivision as you can get. I'm all the way on the other side. I'm in the bottom of the neighborhood, all the way in the southeast corner. I have been in that neighborhood since 1984. My father was in the neighborhood. My sister's been in the neighborhood. My brother was in the neighborhood. I've kind of grown up running around there, my teenagers and up, I guess, throughout my life. The whole idea of this proposed subdivision in lot sizes, that what they've got proposed here, I think is detrimental to our value of our homes. I think, of course, I agree with everybody else as far as the inlet to the neighborhood. There's no benefit there. It hurts us way more than it helps us. I would even bring to the table, since we've got so many here, if we need to become or can become a gated community to keep this kind of thing from happening, to keep that opening from coming, to keep another opening from coming, as Mr. Rivas said, towards Craft or out on the Church Road or whatever. If that's what we need to do, that's something that I think we could at least bring to the table and discuss between everybody in this neighborhood to see. And we want to protect this neighborhood. We've been here forever. My kids played in the streets. My grandkids play in the streets. It's always been that way, and I would love to see it stay that way, because it's a place we've all grown up that we thoroughly love, and I think everybody agrees. We just want to keep it as close as possible to what we have now, and if there's other options out there for us to protect ourselves, then I think that's what we need to look at. Thank you.
All right. On that
Chair,
third row, Danny.
Chair, I make a motion to suspend the rules and move this application to consideration.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules and
Move the application to
move
consideration.
the application forward. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
We have a second.
I make a motion to, I make a motion to table the application. I make a motion to table the application and ask the developer, or ask the applicant to incorporate the 5 acres and also take into consideration the concerns that have been addressed today.
We have a motion to table the application and include the 5 acres, and also address the issues that have been brought forward today. Is that it?
Second.
Do we have a second to that?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Ms. Lewis. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so this has been tabled, and they will address the issues you've brought forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, we got,
you need a motion tabling the plat.
yeah.
You need 2 motions.
There's 2 missions?
You need
What was the second?
rezoning,
Oh.
you need a motion tabling the
Oh,
plat.
and the second one, I also,
Yes, we have 2 applications, so
and I make a motion to table, was it number 3?
number 3.
Item 2 and item 3.
Item 2 and item 3.
Okay.
Table item 2 and item 3 until the applicant adds the 5 acres and takes into considerations the.
Okay, the motion's been revised to
second.
table item 2 and item 3.
And the second.
We have a
Second.
second by Mr. Stratton on item 3. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Then 2 and 3 have been revised.
Need a motion to adjourn?
I don't know if that was legal or not.
Excuse me. We've got some additional business, so if you would just let us continue with the next item, that would be awesome. What else we got?
Is there any other business from? All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we've got the motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Have a second?
Second.
Ms. Lewis, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?